of our dreams.
So my Trek and Tell for this time is Star Trek: The Next Generation: The Perfect Mate on VHS.
Wrong show.
Wrong show. I was so close.
Wrong show, you son of a bitch. Wrong show, and you still beat me at Trek and Tell.
Let's check all the places.
Yeah,
all
make sure there's not a black hole.
places.
Stacy said we were a black hole yesterday.
Yeah, I got that report, I think, from the omnipotent Willard. But I just thought he was being funny or cool.
No.
Nobody's funnier or cooler than I am. And I missed it, so. Right, everyone, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Yes,
right,
thank
right,
you.
right.
Whew. All right.
Right.
Right. YouTube appears to be doing what it's supposed to do.
And I just got notifications that it's doing that
Chris,
as well.
turn off your sounds.
No, I will never. My book, my sound.
Good point. All right.
My body, my choice.
That was the wrong button.
Very good point.
On the wings of our dreams.
So you're in full control there, right, Stacy?
Looks like we are good.
All
She's
right.
got the right hook
Did anybody check Facebook?
I don't have it on my phone any longer.
All right.
Won't be me.
I'm checking on my PC.
Did anyone check Blue Skies?
I don't think we're streaming on Blue Skies yet. Can you stream on Blue Skies?
I don't know.
Oh, it says we're live. It put a red circle around our profile picture.
Hello.
Yep. Hey, we're there. Cool, cool, cool. Stacy, if you could put a link to Riverside if anybody wants to join us later.
All right, I got
In
that.
between chapters.
Thank you, Stacy.
The link for the call-in. Do you have that?
Who's calling?
It was the one you posted on the Facebook post last week. So whatever that link is.
Here, I'll post it here in the chat just in case it has changed. I don't know. Let's see. Live stream chat. I'll post it here, and then you can post it everywhere for me, and then we should be ready to go. I realize I shouldn't have named it Part 1.
Yeah.
Because it's Part 4 now. Oh, there you guys.
Me last week.
That wasn't confusing at all.
That's me. It's part of my charm, you know? All right. So let's see. Is that good? Chris, you hear me?
I do. Albie, you hear me?
I hear you. Does anybody else want to tap the mic?
Waiter. Try the soup.
Good? Try the soup.
What's wrong? What? No, just try it. Is it too hot?
I can't eat this.
Just
soup.
try it. Just try it.
Is Linda here? I still have the package. Okay.
Still the wrong show.
This is what we're doing tonight, right?
That's one.
All right. All right. Get a drink.
It's Foreknowledge, the last of the parts.
What chapter are we starting at?
18.
That's 13, 16.
Page 179.
179.
Oh, that helps.
The
narrow
sexiest
it
number,
down.
179.
Oh, I know what I don't have open. Let's open the
179, chapter 18.
fun.
Okay, let me get some fog going on. There we go. All right. Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie.
And I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Stacy.
And I'm Mike.
Suzanne.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? And we are live!
Live!
I've been here waiting for hours, and you guys are just like rolling in without a care in the world.
Sure.
Or the opposite.
Exactly how it went.
The exact
Adrian's here. Adrian Sal, I believe.
Hey, Adrian from the land down under.
What are you doing up there, Adrian? What is it, 4 o'clock in the morning for you?
It's got to be.
No,
or
it's
noon, but it's tomorrow or
noon.
yesterday.
It's noon.
for
He's
sure.
on lunch. Adrian's on lunch.
Oh, cool. Hello, Corman Productions is right there. This is what we're doing tonight. We are reading part 4 of Foreknowledge, written by Christopher DeFilippis. I don't know if you've been following us, but we have a very special treat this time. This is the 4th quarter of it, so it's getting good. And we're lucky enough to have the author of the book with us, Christopher DeFilippis. Hello,
It
Chris.
hasn't happened yet. Oh, I'm glad to finally be here for the reading of my own. Oh, wait a minute.
Have you seen any of our shows previously?
They weren't that great.
They weren't that
It's a good thing I'm here now. I'm only teasing.
We are doing this to get donations for Matt's family,
Yes.
Zach and Sharon. There, you'll notice a QR code on the screen. Please use that and give all that you can. Anything. Nothing's too small. It all adds up. And the holidays times are coming. And November is the month of Matt. And does anybody know why November is the month of Matt?
Because today is Matt's birthday.
Happy birthday, Matt!
Happy birthday, my friend.
Ooh. I thought about wearing a hat, but I've been having internet issues, so I've been running back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh, I got the book behind me. So we're just going to celebrate our friend and hopefully get some good donations this time. This is the fourth and final book reading. We'll have maybe 2 more things coming out this month in the month of Matt, so look out for those.
Yeah, I have an announcement at the end of something else I'm going to be reading, but we'll save it for.
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right.
So that's the hook. You got to stay tuned for that. So everybody join us. You can chat along. You can give us super chats. You can go to the QR link, which is Matt's family's GoFundMe, or you can just Google Matt Dale GoFundMe and give what you can, dollar pounds.
Please do. Dollar pounds.
really
All the dollar
appreciate it.
pounds you can spare.
And we have some promotions, some giveaways, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
Including this or a signed copy from Christopher DeFilippis himself
Of this.
the book we are reading, Foreknowledge.
A better copy than this one.
And who in life doesn't need foreknowledge? It's very important. It helps. It really does. Trust me. All right. So we have Stacy from Corman Productions, which is the TV deep dive podcast.
Corn
Deep
Productions
Dive TV
Deep
podcast.
Dive TV podcast.
All
And there's
right,
no
and
talk. There's no TV talk. I was
There's no talk.
schooled. There's no talk.
There's talk. TV talk deep dive.
We
Corman
don't talk,
Productions.
though.
All right. Ooh, I wonder if anybody has had a silent podcast. That's interesting. Maybe we should start one.
It saves time on editing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it hasn't been done, I'm claiming that right now. Mike, welcome, Mike. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing
Let
great,
everybody know
thanks.
where you're from and where they can find you real quick.
Well, I co-host Fandom Entanglement with Damon, who will be joining us shortly, hopefully. And we're currently reviewing Sliders. We just wrapped up season 1. The finale posted today. And we'll be taking a little hiatus till January when we'll start on season 2.
So everybody look, search your
exciting.
podcatchers for Fandom Entanglement, and you can hear them talking all about sliders.
That's a great name. Suzanne,
Hey.
contributor to the Quantum Leap podcast. How you doing? I'm
Good.
glad to have you here.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Been
Finally got on here.
I'm very excited. I love that hoodie and or jammies. That looks really good.
Yeah, it's a doggy hoodie. Christmas doggy hoodie.
Yep. Oh, very cool. Very festive. Very festive. I went with Neil deGrasse Tyson and green. So that's my theme tonight. All right, Chris, before we start. Hey, you wrote the book. You put the most effort in, okay? So we're starting at chapter 18. Could you give us a previously on Foreknowledge, Chris?
Previously on Foreknowledge, we had just come in after Al decided to leap, and he leapt into MIT, I believe, sometime in the 80s, and it's Sam's Nobel Prize ceremony, like a party that is being thrown in his honor. And Amory discovered Sam's identity by seeing his face on the cover of Time magazine as Man of the Year. And that's what led her to this party, to find him to exact her retribution. Meanwhile, back on Sam's leap, we have things developing, I guess. Kat's running for mayor, and they just found some kind of smoking gun that will help them get over on the evil councilman Rex Barringer, but we don't know what that is quite yet. So we had a mole, we had a Hall of Records, we had like a whole caper thing. It was like Ocean's 13, maybe Ocean's 14. You just got to go back and listen. That's how good it is.
They're all really good.
I mean,
Mayor.
Clooney called me. He said, "Can I?" And I'm like, "George, no, you played George. That's it. Maybe Brad, but not you, George." All right.
All right. So that's a good previously on.
So
All right, we got some comments.
And
Adrian has a request.
Yes, I'm working on it, Adrian. I promise it'll be out before
All
the
right.
end of the month.
That's good. Month of May, November.
Right. And if you can't see
right.
that, he's saying release the Mean Streak Pod.
Yeah, it's become a topic trending on Blue Sky now.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
So I'm excited. So looks like we lost Hayden because of my tardiness. My apologies to Hayden. So how about we start with Christopher DeFilippis?
Yeah, I'd like to read chapter 18 and the epilogue, and then you guys can have at what you want, or I'll read the way you want me to. But last we left off, Anne-Marie was stalking Sam, and she tracked him to Sebastian Lonegro's office at MIT, where they were having some kind of private meeting, and she knocked on the door. So we're right here at this point. I got to put my glasses on. I'm not going to make this question again.
You got a comment. Adrian Sal says, question, do you need to have read the previous books before reading this one?
The answer
to
that,
no.
Adrian, is no. All of the books in the Quantum Leap novel series are standalone adventures. There's no such thing as serialization. So if you want to read
this one's the best.
In the McConnell verse, I mean, Ashley's books do somehow build or reference each other, but they're just their own things. You don't need to have read anything before reading this. You need to have watched the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, I've done that. I've watched it a few times.
So I feel like if you're here watching this, you've watched the show, and that's why you're here. So chapter 18 of Foreknowledge. Everybody ready?
Ready.
All right. The party's back at Stratton, Sibby. What do you need to show me that can't wait until tomorrow? Sam Beckett followed his mentor into the office, pulling the door behind him. The room smelled of polished leather and old parchment. Sam let it wash over him. That anxious to go to the slaughter, are you? Lonegro asked, throwing his coat over a chair. He went behind the mahogany desk and pulled the bottom drawer open. It won't be pretty, you know. They smile and congratulate you, but don't think there's a one of them who's not green inside. He straightened up, holding 2 champagne flutes by the stems. I, for one, have labored all week on a limerick that will sear the skin from your bones. The string theory was tough, but it's nothing compared to finding a word that rhymes with Beckett. Sam could think of 3 off the top of his head, but remained silent. He had the unfair advantage of having carried the name for 34 years. What are those for? He asked. These, my friend, Sebastian set the glasses on the desk, are for 15 years worth of sweat, sleepless nights, scrabbling for funding, and putting up with congressional focus groups. He gently pushed a wooden panel on the bottom of the bookcase. It opened on hidden hinges to reveal a mini fridge. Like it? He asked, pulling the door open. He retrieved a bottle of champagne. Just had them put it in last week. Think Hef would be proud? All you need is a pipe and pajamas, Sam replied. Very chic. And handy for keeping my almond joys cool. But seriously, there's been a lot of limelight lately, and I haven't had the chance to congratulate you properly. He poured and handed a foam-top flute to Sam. To you, Sam, and your Nobel. I'm proud of you. Sam didn't raise his glass with Sebastian. He felt funny drinking a toast to himself. The prize is as much yours as it is mine, he said. It was in your cabin that we did the first calculations, and I know for a fact that without your continued input, I never would have made the numbers fit. Lonegro shook his head. You've come a long way from the Berkshires, my boy. Permit yourself an attaboy. Will you? You've done it. No, Sibby, listen. I've never really said this straight out, and it's past time. If you hadn't been there for me after my dad died, I don't know. The memory was vivid, painful. His father leaving the world a broken man, the farm to which he had devoted his life stolen out from under him, until the only thing left was the plot of land the house sat on. And, worst of all, Sam being too self-absorbed to realize it until it was too late. Sebastian had shown himself to be more than an interested physics professor during that terrible summer, taking Sam to his cabin to help him sort things out and presenting him with a theoretical exercise about the scientific nature of birth and death and the string that linked them. You helped me put it into a context that I could understand, Sam continued. The words didn't exist. Thank you. Sebastian shrugged. Just simple mental gymnastics, that's all. They stared at one another for a few moments, sharing one of those sharing one of the expressive silences that constitute the meaningful memories in a man's life. On to more important things, the Negro said, expression turning devilish. What are you going to do with all the dough? Sam laughed and took a taste of the bubbly. Get myself a lifetime pass on the gravy train and leave this pitiful rabble like yourself behind, of course. What do you think I'm going to do with it? Projects don't just build themselves. I'll use some to set Mom up, but the rest is startup capital for Quantum Leap. Sebastian inhaled loudly through clenched teeth. I think I just heard a few more of our esteemed elected officials run screaming into the night. They hate you more than our colleagues smiling away over in Stratton. They hate you more than our colleagues smiling away over in Stratton. They keep expressing interest in my theories, Sam said. Weitzman especially. Logan too. It's just tough to get them to make a commitment. Well, don't expect them to roll over for you now that you have a Nobel tucked under your belt. If anything, it will make them even more obtuse. The only way they can still feel they have the upper hand is by proving to you that they're the ones with the power to make or break you. To hell with that. It's not my fault they don't understand the mathematical foundations. If I try to explain it intelligently, I get blank stares. If I dumb it down, they look at me like it's the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard. I'm getting tired of it. I'll go corporate if I have to. That's where the money is anyway. To hell with that, Sebastian replied. Do you really think they'll let you go your own way? None of them understand what in the world you're talking about, but it's for precisely that reason they'll keep stringing you along. He raised his hands. No pun intended. Politics dissolved to the base, pure and simple. They'll doubt your sanity. They'll even doubt their own judgment for letting you present your theories time and again. But not one of them will wash their hands of you if there's even an off chance that you've stumbled upon the greatest discovery mankind has ever known. A bit melodramatic, don't you think? I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but anyone else would. You may have cracked time travel, for God's sake. The scientific community is spinning on its proverbial ear, my friend. You've got the unified field theory in a stranglehold, and that was only a byproduct of reaching the greater goal. Never mind science either. The government is salivating, thinking of the military applications. I told Tom, and I'll tell you again, you have the kind of brain that comes along only once in a generation. Don't try and shrug it off like it's no big deal. Uncle Sam won't. Sam paced, draining his glass and loosening his bow tie. Okay, point taken. The false starts are just getting frustrating. I didn't expect them after the work I did on Project Starbright. Still, I think the tide might turn soon. I finally got someone to help me. Who? What? I should say that again. Help me. What? Who? Sam remained silent, mentally cursing himself. This was the one direction in which he didn't want the conversation to go, and he'd steered it there himself. Damn champagne. Oh, no, Larnegro exclaimed. Tell me it's not Calavici. Civvy, he knows what he's doing. The only thing he knows is how to get smashed, the professor said. What the hell are you thinking? He'll bring you down in flames. Sam turned, annoyed. He knows how to avoid the pitfalls. He's spent his life dealing with these people, and he's not afraid to stand up to them when he has to. I need him. I know he's had a distinguished career, Sam, but it's over. They're only waiting for an excuse to bounce him. You're just taking on baggage you don't need because of friendship. That's not true. He managed Starbright just fine. He's hit a rough patch, I admit, but he just needs something to focus on to get back on track. Sam sighed. I know it's a gamble, but it'll pay off. Just spend a few minutes alone with him and you'll see what a terrific guy he is. Not even the booze can hide that. Lonegro shook his head. You're making a big mistake, Sam. There was a rap on the door. The professor moved to answer. Party calling. Well, for once, I'll prove you wrong. In fact, I'll bet on it. Sam put his glass on the desk, studying it absently. What do you say, Sibby? Sam looked up and saw his friend backing into the office, hands raised. Al rushed across Massachusetts Avenue, the damp air wrapping his injured knee with cold fingers. The layout of the campus was still fuzzy in his mind, but he didn't think about it. He had taken this route so many times in his youth that his subconscious would probably lead him there. Concentrating would only get in the way. which was just as well because his mind reeled as it replayed the meeting he had just had. That it was unsettling was the mildest of observations. Seeing himself at such a low point without the filters of time and impaired perception was a blow more crippling than his throbbing joint. He had been worse than he had ever allowed himself to imagine, stumbling like a pantomime hobo, as irritating as poison ivy, the archetypical nasty boozer. He had been sober going on 12 years now, except for one slip-up he could remember, but a lifetime wouldn't provide enough distance. Al wouldn't have thought it possible, but Sam had gained his respect from yet another angle. What had his friend seen in that wreck back there that had allowed him to risk his life's work, risk losing the fruition of his dreams? He concentrated on what to do when he got to Sam, if he got to Sam at his hobbling pace. He didn't have a gun, so direct confrontation was out of the question. Sneaking up from behind would also be logistically impossible if they were already in Lenegro's office, which they most definitely would be by the time he arrived. He could lie in wait in the corridor until they came out, and would probably wind up watching as Anne-Marie shot Sam and Sebastian. There was no way 3 live people were leaving that office unless he made sure Anne-Marie wasn't one of them. He was prepared to take that step if it was necessary. He hoped it wouldn't be. Surprise was really the only way, and if that meant rushing in and hoping for the best, then that's what he would do. Not that he particularly wanted to die any more than he wanted to kill Anne-Marie, but he was also prepared to take that step if it meant saving Sam and saving himself from a revived lifetime of the horror he had just seen in Stratton. No, the timeline he had leaped from was the better choice, even if preserving it meant he couldn't be a part of it any longer. Al redoubled his pace, trying to outrun the leaves scurrying ahead of him in the gathering wind. The dark buildings surrounding him didn't look familiar, but they somehow felt right. If only he had a way to be sure. "I'll take any help you want to give," he yelled heavenward. The clouds roared an ear-shattering response. He caught a white flash ahead on his right, then lost it in the lightning bolt of the next instant. Had it been Sammy Joe? He ran blindly towards the spot, but the only thing he saw was a path leading to the right. Which way? Dear God! He decided on his original direction, but a familiar poink sounded on his right after he had taken no more than one step. Unless the lightning strike had transported him into the Looney Tunes universe, it could only mean one thing. The new path brought him into a courtyard, and Al strained his ears for another signal from Ziggy. He wheeled around on his good leg, looking for something, anything. Another bolt from the heavens revealed a sign. Eastman was directly in front of him. Whether it was blind luck or divine intervention, he didn't know, but he offered up thanks and sped into the building. Once inside, caution slowed his pace. On the off chance Emery hadn't gotten upstairs yet, it wouldn't do for him to provide a target. He hugged the wall, just another shadow, providing, of course, that shadows tripped. He went down, cursing himself, and came to a stop on his extended arms. He pushed himself to a crouch, his knee telling him in no uncertain terms exactly what it thought of that, and inspected the bundle at his feet. A backpack. It could belong to a careless student, but he didn't think so. And if Anne-Marie had dropped it, it might contain something more useful than a nightstick. He unzipped it and found only crumpled papers. He unfolded one to reveal an image of Sam as disturbing as some of his POW camp memories. He tossed it aside and dug deeper, toward the weight he felt at the bottom. His hand cradled something smooth, and he drew it out. Not a gun, but an old mason jar filled with clear fluid. What use could she possibly have for that? He caught an acrid smell and raised the container to his nose. Formaldehyde? He pushed off from his good leg, cradling the jar. It might come in handy, if only as a projectile. He didn't know Anne-Marie's intentions and tried not to figure them out. The sloshing sound coming from underneath his arm made it hard. The one thing he did know for sure from seeing those pictures was that Anne-Marie was beyond talking to. No speech he made, no matter how persuasive, would make her change her mind. More thunder boomed from outside, and the first fat drops of rain splattered against the roof. He thought he saw Sammy Joe come and go again, but he didn't need her to tell him what to do. Al found the stairs and began climbing. Anne-Marie jammed her gun into Lernegro's stomach, backing him into the room. It was funny the way he raised his arms, like a puppet on strings. Her strings. Who are you? What is the meaning of this? Shut up. She rammed the barrel into his gut, and he stumbled backwards, falling over a chair. Sibby! It was Beckett! New hatred poured into the ball in her middle, and it puked forth waves of anger worthy of the years of frustration and wondering she had suffered. Contracting her finger, she pointed low as she pulled the trigger, just missing Beckett's foot. He froze, looking at her. See what you made me do? She seethed. Someone might have heard that. She leveled the gun at his head. Just like you, screwing things up. Fire, weakling, fire. Her finger tightened on the trigger again, but she forced it to relax. No! She couldn't permit it to end so quickly. The gods had given her a chance to do more, to confront him face to face, to make him suffer. Mete out his justice, child. The time is at hand. And if they were Thomas's murderers, would you give up the chance to make them understand, to know why they deserve to die? There was no response. Sam? The professor was on his knees. Sibby, was it? What kind of sissy name was that? I'm sorry. What kind of sissy nickname is that? Who is she talking to? I told you to shut up, Sibby. Anne-Marie waved him to his feet, laughing at the ridiculous sounding word. It's finally my turn to have some questions answered. Stand next to your friend where I can see you. He moved at her urging, and both men backed against a large bookcase. What an obedient pair they made, linking their hands behind their heads without being told, elbows akimbo, a pair of frightened bookends. She laughed again and relaxed the gun a bit, surveying the office. She was going to enjoy this. Nice office, Sibby. I used to have one just like it, just as nice, maybe nicer. But your friend Sam knows all about that. Don't you, Sam? Beckett kept his eyes trained on her, opened his mouth. Keep quiet, damn it. You will not make me shoot you before I'm ready. My, but don't you look surprised, Anne-Marie chuckled. Didn't think I'd find you. That it? Thought you'd get away with it and not have to own up to the harm you've done? Well, it doesn't work like that. I refuse to be your victim any longer. Do you hear me? Miss, I told you to keep quiet. It's your turn to know what it feels like to have your life ripped away. When you're at your highest point, Mr. Nobel, Mr. Mirror. His blank stare enraged her. Knock off the bewildered act. Your little game is over. I know all about you, how you invaded my body like a parasite, destroying everything I worked so hard to achieve, all I sacrificed for. She felt tears welling in her eyes, but she refused to succumb to the weakness. He wouldn't get the satisfaction. What makes you think you have the right to screw with people's lives, with my life, and then toss me aside? Typical man. And you're honored for it. Well, I have your Nobel right here. Anne-Marie raised the gun again, moved in. It's time for payback, Mirror Man, and I'm going to destroy your life. Only I won't hide behind some fancy experiment and label it science. I'm not a coward like you. Pathetic weakling. Take a good look at me. I demand that you know exactly who it is that beat you. I'm the one you shouldn't have screwed with, and I'll be the last thing you see before you die. She was within an arm's reach now, heart pumping, voices shrieking. She knocked the other man on the side of the head with the barrel of her pistol. He reeled to the right, then collapsed behind the desk. This moment was theirs. No one else would share it. She rested the gun on Sam's temple, enjoying the way his breath quickened. Scared? She drew the knife out slowly, holding it in front of his eyes before trailing its point up and down his chest. Good. Remember how it feels. Thelma will feel the same way soon. So will Katie. His breath stopped in a satisfying hitch. Did you think it ended with you? No, doctor. I know all about you. I'm going to erase every trace of your existence. Shouldn't be too hard with mother dear and sister living all by their lonesome out there in the sticks. It's too bad your father and brother are already dead. Only the pigs will hear their screams. How dare you? The pressure she applied to the blade shut him up nicely. Anne-Marie laughed. My, you sound positively enraged. I'm glad you're taking it so personally. After all, what good is justice unless it stings a little? She trailed the knife again, applying enough force to rend the fabric of his shirt, exposing the flesh underneath. Don't worry. There is one part of you that I'll keep around. I feel it's my due after all. Since you took mine all those years ago, I only hope it's still beating when I cut it out. You got him now, girl. If he ain't panting like a dog in heat. You always had a way with words, Evangeline, she chuckled. But I've been remiss, haven't I? After all, this would be nothing more than a kangaroo court if I didn't give him a chance to come clean. Isn't that right, Sam? I can't go on and on about justice and not give you a chance to speak in your own defense. Speak up. I want to see you theorize your way out of this one. What are you talking about? His facade didn't falter a bit. How dare you threaten my family? You got caught in your ears, man? I just told you. Why do you insist on keeping up this charade? It's confession time. I'll give you one more chance. Chance at what? I've never seen you before in my life. The ball in Anne-Marie's middle exploded like a supernova, the renewed rage causing her hand to tremble. How dare he? The gods had made her choice plain. She cocked the pistol. Wrong answer.
Wow. Ooh. Dude, so good.
I wish I could read it a little bit better. I'm sorry. I get excited when I'm reading it, and then I get ahead of myself and I stumble a bit. I'm sorry.
You'll do much better than me, my friend. It's cool to hear it the way you heard it in your head while you were writing it, I think.
Right?
I still think I hear it a little bit differently in my head, but yeah. That's why, I like that chapter a lot, and I love the epilogue. The epilogue is probably my favorite part of the book, so that's why I wanted to read both of those.
Yep, perfect.
Nice.
Bookends. Haha.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what rhymes with Beckett?
I don't know, but everybody asked me that at East Sleep too, and they said, what rhymes with Beckett? And I said, I don't know. I'm not Sam. Sam knows. I don't know.
Oh, heck it.
What?
Oh, heck it.
Yeah, maybe. I'll take it. Wow, that's exciting. I think if this was a TV episode, he would just do a roundhouse kick and the episode would be over, right?
Well, not when she's got a gun to Sibby's head and a knife to his chest.
That's true. That's true. Wow, this is exciting. This is tense. All right, the reason we're doing this, it's the month of Matt. We're looking for donations. Month of Matt. Use the QR code on your screen. You know how to do it. It's 24th century, 23rd, 21st. It's some century where we use QR codes. So do that, or
right
Google Matt Dale, GoFundMe, or look for links in the chat, and give what you can. Nothing too little, nothing too much. I think the Quantum Leap podcast is giving a free mug to anyone who donates over $100 pounds. Is that what's going on?
$100 pounds is fine. Yeah, I like
$100
that.
pounds. Yeah, and I think you get a T-shirt if you're donate over $200 pounds. And if you want both, just $250, and you get a shirt and a mug, whichever logo you want, the classic logo, the new logo, Chris's face, whatever.
Yeah.
We can put it on the mug.
I can do a Penelope mug if anybody
You want it
wants
signed? Chris will sign it, right? You'll inscribe a mug, right?
Sure. Okay.
Keep leaping.
Yeah. I mean, don't put it in the dishwasher after that.
It's all for Matt and Matt's family. Yeah, no. I only keep mine behind Lucite. I took it out now for an example. So
I love Lucite. It's my favorite sitcom.
Your signature's not on it anymore. Okay.
Oh.
So wow. Let's see. And also, Chris, right? Inscribed book, right? Everyone
Yes,
watching, commenting, donating.
It's all random. Anybody, no purchase necessary. Void in Playville, Colorado.
Colorado.
Whatever. I don't know. Whatever you with Albie's boilerplate. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
we
just
as
so
we go.
we don't want to get anybody in trouble, especially us for giving them a book or something.
Right.
Or a
So,
mug. So wow. Okay. I had to take a beat between this.
oh,
'cause-
Mike's got it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Again, Mike's
there you
got
go.
Like
my
that.
signature from me being a young man when my signature meant something. It was so 20th
That's from
century.
2009.
All right.
Will you sign Stacy's iPad?
I signed Beyond the Mirror Image for Stacy.
Oh, okay. Chris, do you have your signature?
Not in my own book, no.
Don't
It's in
you have FOMO now?
It's
You
in
got to
my-
have FOMO.
It's in my heart, which Anne Marie is going to cut out and put in her mason jar. So
Wow, that was scary. Time travel, man. That's what happens. Okay, chapter 19. Can we get the lovely Suzanne Smiley to read that for us?
Ooh.
Can I ask a quick
sure.
question before we?
Sure, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah,
fine.
sure.
You mentioned, so in this timeline, Tom is dead,
hmm
but isn't this happening after the events of Trilogy? So
Yeah,
Tom should be alive.
a lot of people ask me that, and whatever is good for the drama is what I went with.
Fair
And,
enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my mind, and
I
also
have
in
a
this
good
point,
explanation for it.
Anne-Marie is
At the
fucking
end.
with things to the point where, and we're live. Anne-Marie
And
is
we're
messing,
live.
Anne-Marie is messing with things to the point where the timeline at this point is very fluid. So
I like that.
it could be Schrodinger's Tom at this point.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Timey-wimey stuff, right?
yeah, we know John is always dead. John, no matter what Sam does, John is dead. But
Yeah.
John is a fixed point in time.
Right.
You're a fixed point in time.
Your mom's a fixed point in time. They are right there.
She totally is. She is. She totally is.
Anyway.
So before you start, we have Roll for Tarako joined the chat.
Ruffalo Taco.
And,
Ruffalo.
Hayden sent his apologies that his internet's being wonky, and that's why he left.
Dude, mine too.
And Ruffalo says he was engrossed in my reading.
Yeah,
I am pretty
it's
gross,
good.
so he's not wrong.
It is good. When the AI gets better, what I'm going to do is AI have you read this book.
Yeah,
I've got 2-3 chapters of you reading, so it should be enough.
I need to read it with takes that we can edit so that I don't stumble over my own words because I'm so excited for what I know is coming next. That's all.
Ooh, spoilers. You've read ahead.
I have. I admit. Sorry. I ruined book club.
Ruffalo Taco.
Thank you for everybody who's watching again. This is, of course, to benefit Matt and his family. Please log on or go to the QR code and
give what you can.
Yes, please. And
No amount is too small.
Today is Matt's birthday. So
happy birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday
Happy
to our friend Matt. He would have
birthday.
been 44 years old today.
44.
I miss him every day. What a tragedy.
Mm.
All right. We're on to chapter 19.
Chapter
Yep.
19.
You said Suzanne. Suzanne, would you like to do
Suzanne
the honors for chapter
Smiley.
19?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. The
Thank you.
debate was on. Sam paced behind the stage that had been set up, cursing his high heels and nervously rubbing his hands in the cool night breeze. Mayor, is it McClough?
McClough is how I
McClough?
thought.
Mayor
in my head.
McClough had decided to use the town square for the clash, partly to make room for the media circus, partly in hopes that the cold would deter people from coming. Row upon row of folding chairs stood under the large canopy, and most of them were already filled. The TV and press photographers' platform was jammed with people vying for space. 2 reporters' areas, local and non-local, had been designated in front of the stage. Both were abuzz, with the whirs of rewinding tape recorders and the rustle of reporters' notebooks. The townspeople weren't idle either. The sign-waving factions still marched the canopy's perimeter, a cacophony of conflicting slogans being chanted for any ear, human or electronic, that cared to listen. Sam repeated a mantra of his own, growing more nervous with each step. Where are you, Al? He had no idea how things would end up, even with Kyle's information in hand. It was a foreign feeling, especially this late in the game. Usually, he would know exactly what to expect at this point. But since there was no sensation of an impending leap, there had to be a factor, maybe many factors, that he still needed to deal with. He racked his brain, looking for the situation from every angle. Tawny and Kyle had spent the free moments of the last 2 days in quiet conversation. There had been no yelling, no abrupt partings that he had seen, but he wasn't sure if that was a good sign or not. For all he knew, they could be discussing Tawny's return home, or just as easily be glossing over the issues that neither of them wanted to face, cementing the last bricks into the wall separating them. He wanted desperately to shoehorn his way into at least one of those bull sessions to ensure the conversation was flowing in the right direction. But he had his hands full, helping Kat to organize a strategy, making sure she fully grasped the new information that had fallen into their laps. His apprehension sprang from the fact that he wouldn't be the one at the podium delivering the blows, knocking Berenger off his horse. Ultimately, he had to trust his fate to her and hope she didn't screw up. Normally, he wouldn't have such a problem with a situation like this. Kat was obviously intelligent, would in all likelihood meet the challenge with ease. But without the observer there to confirm it, he couldn't shake the antsy sensation. Being a man of science, of set equations and solutions, his faith wavered in the face of intangibles unless he was dealing with them personally. Kyle's source was another problem. The person, whoever he or she was, refused to come forward. Kyle's permission to clue Sam and the rest of them in on the details was as far as he had gotten. He couldn't blame the person for stepping lightly after he realized the magnitude of the situation. The possible repercussions were much bigger than Berenger the possible repercussions were much bigger than Berenger, would potentially rock the entire town. If Kyle's source was a town official, that person would become highly suspect for just having known about the situation. But understanding the source's hesitancy didn't make Sam feel any better. It was just another wild card to worry about. What side of the story was he missing? What approach hadn't he thought of? He continued his pacing, praying he wouldn't hear the annoying melody of the hand link.
Praying he would soon hear.
Soon hear, yes.
Yes.
The annoying melody of the hand link. I need to take my glasses off because I could read better without them.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, where was I? All right. That was a side of the story he didn't want to think about. It had been days since Gushy's strange departure. The possibilities festered in the back of his mind, becoming more worrisome with each passing hour. First, Al disappears, then Gushy, as if the door to the imaging chamber opened into bright white oblivion. Even if he had something else to guide him, a crystal ball that showed him the outcome of the debate and exactly what he needed to do to ensure it, it would probably only make things worse. Then he would have nothing to distract his brain from churning out increasingly dire versions of the calamities befalling Project Quantum Leap. The only thing that could dispel them would be a haze of holographic cigar smoke and an inappropriate remark or two about the female anatomy. I swear you were the one about to step into the spotlight the way you're hopping around. Sam turned to face Mayor McLeod?
Yes.
McLeod. Okay. Who had paused on the steps leading to the stage. Just nervous, Miss Mayor, he replied. The club's employees have a lot riding on tonight. I hope everything works out. Well, that won't be apparent for a while, no matter who wins. You'll have your answer come this time tomorrow with when all the ballots are counted. The rest of us will just have to wait and see. Sam ascended the steps into a blaze of flashbulbs. I'm afraid we'll all be feeling change a lot sooner than you think, Sam said softly. He turned from the stage and saw Kat and Richard standing under a streetlight. Richard was speaking in soothing tones as his wife took drag after drag of her cigarette. Sam approached the pair. Everything okay? Just a case of the jitters, Richard replied with a smile. You'll do fine. Won't you, honey? Sure, Kat replied, exhaling a plume of smoke. I've been on stage before in front of a lot more people and wearing a lot less. Sam wasn't sure who the comment was meant to reassure, especially the way Kat clutched the manila folder to her chest. She patted it. It's in the bag. I just wish we knew exactly when to let the cat out. Kyle told us we would know. He seemed to have everything under control, so just try to relax. Just go up there and stick to our original strategy until it's time. Kat nodded, taking another drag. Got it. Sam lingered a moment before moving off. He wished there was something more he could say, but he was afraid that if he kept talking, he would reveal his own doubts. Not a wise idea. He turned to the front of the stage instead and studied the frenzy of activity. Mayor McLeod had gotten to a live microphone and called for attention. The rallying crowd seemed torn between continuing their demonstration and getting down to business. The groups grew smaller as people found their seats, most taking their signs with them. The mayor stood in the center of the stage, flanked by a podium at each end, and waited for the crowd's rumblings to settle down before she started speaking. First, I'd like to thank all of you attending tonight's debate. It gratifies me as mayor to see that the civic spirit is so alive and well in the community of Wilson. And since tonight's event has drawn so much attention outside our city, I'm going to establish certain ground rules that both candidates have agreed to.
Can I stop you there for a second, Suzanne?
Sure.
You're completely like gallicking on me.
I'm doing what?
Your audio is harmonizing. It's breaking up a bit.
Oh, huh.
Is it me or is it everybody? Everybody's frozen to me all of a sudden. I think it's me. I'm sorry. Could be me.
Yeah, I've noticed nothing wrong.
You've noticed something wrong. So it's all me. Never mind. So continue. We have certain ground rules that both candidates have agreed to.
Yes. In effort to keep the talk focused on the issues important to members of this electorate, the local press will begin the questioning. They will have up to 30 minutes to ask questions before the floor is opened for townspeople. When their half hour is up, the out-of-town and national news organizations can begin. Discontented rumblings arose from the National Press Corps. Sorry, folks, but I will not permit sensationalism to detract from the real reason we're here. The comment was met with silence. McLeod continued. Questions should be addressed to a specific candidate. His or her opponent will have a chance to respond. I will call on reporters one at a time. Due to the highly publicized nature of this election, the candidates have agreed to limit their opening statements to 1 minute. And finally, I ask those people here tonight in a show of support to hold their applause until after their candidate speaks. Save it for the cameras, folks. Without further delay, I'd like to welcome Mr. Rex Berenger and Ms. Kathy Sherber-Danson to the stage. The crowd erupted in applause as Sam walked along the edge of the canopy looking for a seat. His heart leaped into triple time when he saw Kyle sitting with Tawny. The journalist waved him over, indicating an empty chair next to him. Isn't this terrific? Kyle asked when Sam was within earshot. He had to yell over the crowd's roar, and we haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. What the hell are you doing back here? Sam shouted. Why aren't you up there getting ready? I'm out of town, remember? Kyle drew Sam down into the empty seat. I'd have to wait at least an hour before I could even think about asking a question. But look at this. He swept his arm in the direction of the crowd. With all these people here, it's going to be one hell of a show. Sam couldn't share the man's exuberance. I hope you're right. He watched Kat take her place on the stage. The woman looked like she was trying to hide behind the podium. Can you at least give me a hint as to what's going to happen? You'll know soon enough, Kyle replied. Sam cast a pained gaze at Tawny. You don't have to tell me what a pain he is, she said. Just be thankful you haven't had to put up with it your whole life. Tawny's smile told Sam there was no real sting behind her words. Maybe those chat sessions had been positive after all. She also didn't seem worried. Whether she was resigned to fate or she trusted her brother a great deal, Sam didn't know. He just hoped her serenity didn't stem from the fact that she would soon be gone. The tumult started to die down as members of the crowd took their seats. Berenger basked in the applause, hanging on to every last shout and whistle. Kat looked positively ill. The way her hands fidgeted, Sam could tell she needed a cigarette, so much that his lungs ached in sympathy. McLeod turned to the councilman. Mr. Berenger, you won the toss, so please begin. Berenger took a few calm breaths, surveying the crowd, seemingly making eye contact with each person in the multitude. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you have pointed out, this election has become highly publicized in past days. I don't know. I guess it makes for good television. The only thing I have seen in these so-called news reports is myself cast as the heavy, evil, narrow-minded fiend who wants to stop constitutional freedoms and do away with civil liberties. Let me set the record straight on a few points. Those of you living in this town know my record of service. I have always had the best interests of this community at heart, and I always will. I am confident that you good people will take that into account when you're at the polls tomorrow. I also feel I've made it abundantly apparent that I believe in First Amendment freedoms. In the face of this media barrage, I have answered all of the questions put to me by these news shows in a calm, succinct, and professional manner. And I've responded only those questions that focused on the issues pertinent to the voters. Never once have I shown up for an interview in a bikini. Berenger stood back, modestly oblivious to the applaud that welled up from his supporters. Rural Purity League signs waved about the crowd like albino butterflies. The mayor had to clear her throat several times to regain silence. Ms. Danson? Kat stood straighter and stared at the microphone like it was a rattlesnake ready to strike. Come on, Sam thought, just like we rehearsed it. I guess we can all be thankful for that, Mr. Berenger. Kat's voice shook, but the joke got laughs. But I have not come here tonight to trade barbs. I've come to trade ideas, to discuss my visions of the future of Wilson. As I've said in any number of interviews, I didn't get into this election for the sole purpose of keeping my club open. If that was my goal, I would have packed up and gone elsewhere. I certainly wouldn't have put myself in the running for a new job. I'm running because I have come to realize how much Wilson means to me. It has a progressive and forward-looking environment that should be a model for other towns to follow. And I don't deny that you had a lot to do with making it that way. You should be commended for the work you've done, but you've crossed a line. By deciding what is right and wrong for people on the basis of your own prejudices, you are undoing all you have achieved. That is why I choose to run. That is why I'm standing here now. And as for my interview technique, her gaze swept the crowd. It got your attention, didn't it? If I don't win and Mr. Berenger restricts your freedoms further, at least none of you can say you didn't see it coming. Applause rose from under the canopy once again, and this time Sam joined in. For a nervous moment, he thought it would all be over before it even began. But Kat had segued into her rehearsed speech just fine. If only she hadn't delivered that last impromptu comment. It had gotten as good a reaction as the first, but its chiding tone might have been a bit much. He hoped she would stick to the prepared answers until her opening came. Let's move on, Mayor McLeod said, positioning herself in front of the local press. She picked randomly from the waving hands in the front row. A runner took a microphone to the reporter who stood. Jerry Brown, News Team 10. Oh, this should be good, Kyle said under his breath. Is this it? Sam asked expectantly. Only when I join the Legion of Morons, that little... Kyle's voice trailed off into a string of mumbled invectives that Sam tried to ignore. You're broadening my vocabulary.
Yes,
here.
and Kyle, apparently Kyle doesn't like Jerry Brown.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Berenger, Brown said, what do you see as the main concern facing the town of Wilson as we head into the next decade? The councilman barely considered the question before replying. Chiefly, it will be maintaining our high standard of living. The city council has worked hard with the current administration to get the ball rolling, but it won't do us much good in the long run if it's not rolling on stable ground. Our revenue base must remain firm, and the way to do that is to implement long-range programs that will ensure employment in the years ahead. We can do that by extending a friendly hand to both industrial and professional interests. Tax incentives are one way, so are enterprise zones. He looked at Kat. Miss Danson? Sam's heart sank. The sensation, a reflection of Kat's expression. The answer they had prepared was almost the same, if not in words, then in tone. He hoped Kat would be able to come up with a different angle that was positive and original enough to stand out. Kat stood dumb for a moment before responding. It made her appear not to have been listening. Well, Mr. Barringer makes some good points. She paused, her voice wavering more than it had before. I think he summed it up pretty well. It took a few moments of silence for Sam to realize that she was finished. She's joking, he said. We're finished. He ran a nervous hand through his hair. He suddenly felt very warm. Kyle put a hand on his knee. It's not over yet. Just be patient. Sam nodded absently, only half registering the fact that Kyle didn't remove his hand after the friendly pat. McLeod was just as surprised. Next question, she said hurriedly, picking another reporter out of the crowd. Thank you, Mayor. Bo Stevens, Channel 8. Ms. Danson, so far a lot of attention has been focused on the concerns of the city proper, but there are so many outlying areas that will be affected by your leadership. What do you have to offer the farmers living on the outskirts of town? Sam kept his fingers crossed. He knew this would eventually come up. Such matters had once touched him personally. She had this one down cold. It's plain that the farming crisis shows no sign of letting up, Kat said, with an enthusiasm bordering on overcompassion.
Overcompensation.
All right. And subsidy checks can only go so far. I'm not saying that we can solve the problem overnight, but we can offer alternatives to those struggling to remain independent. Offering continuing education courses in business management and technological advances at the local level is a good way to start. If elected, I will also establish a committee composed of people from area farms to work in conjunction with a representative of the Department of Agriculture to help their neighbors make the right choices in everything from crop planning to livestock management from one season to the next. This strategy of collective support from friends and neighbors is the strongest weapon we have. I say let's use it. Ms. Danson's sentiments are noble, to be sure, Barringer said, but I don't know how well they'll translate into reality. Committees are political animals, and if there's one thing I'm sure the town's farmers have had enough of, it's political solutions. The ones offered by the federal government are testament to that. I feel I can approach this problem on a more personal level since my formative years were spent on my family's farm. I know what it's like to see your crops wither, to see an entire year's work going to seed. And I think that enables me to offer more than paper solutions. In my administration, I would do more than implement arbitrary programs and hope for the best. We've had enough of working with the problem. I will work against it by attacking it at its heart. The only committee I would form would be one to crusade for change in Washington. That is the type of long-term thinking to which I referred before. It's the only way we'll ever see real change. Sam buried his head in his hands. Strike two. Better get used to this body, buddy boy. The next reporter was chosen. Nancy, okay, can you help me with this name?
Detorovic.
Okay, Detorovic, News Team 10. Kyle's hand tightened on Sam's knee. Sam looked at it like it was some strange animal and shot the man a questioning glance before removing it. Thank you. He directed his thought to the forces above with a roll of his eyes. This is just what I need. Mr. Barringer. Detorovic said, can you tell me what knowledge you have of Southside Carting Company? Sam drew his attention back to the action just in time to see a flash of bewilderment cross Barringer's face. The councilman recovered so quickly that most people probably missed it, but to Sam, it was like a flicker of daylight in a dark tunnel. I seem to recall that name having come up in council business recently, but I fail to see where it's relevant to tonight's debate. Kat took advantage of the lull. Really, Mr. Barringer? Considering what I found out about that company, I'd call the question very relevant. Kat turned to the crowd, her natural flamboyance finally emerging as she studied the upturned faces. It's a bit complicated, so I hope you'll all bear with me as I start from the beginning. Now, Miss Danson, Barringer interrupted, I thought we had agreed to stick to topics important to the voters. Mayor McLeod, Kat said, I believe it is my right to respond to this question without interruptions. Those are the rules we agreed upon. Please hold further comments, Mr. Barringer. Yeah, Rex, can it? Kat turned back to the crowd. Now, where was I? Oh, yes, at the beginning. Let's go back to the very beginning. Mr. Barringer launched his mayoral campaign with funds provided by an organization called the Royal Purity League, an organization that has gained a lot of support in recent weeks. It might interest you to know that at its base, the RPL is officially composed of only two men. One is a land developer, and the other manages the Southside Karting Company. Neither is a man you'd think would have any particular stake in maintaining rural purity. Certainly not men you'd think would be concerned over whether or not a bar on the outskirts of town stays open, unless, of course, you take into account the facts that we have uncovered. Kat held up the manila folder. I have here documents that were retrieved from town hall recently. They are very interesting, and I'd like to share them with you now. Kat made a show of folding back the cover and held up the first page on the pile. On the file was this contact. The deal it concerns is a simple one. Mr. Barringer has hired the developer I mentioned, one of the heads of the RPL, to level a tract of land on the outskirts of town. It just so happens that my club sits on said land. Kat retrieved another document. This is the business charter for the Southside Karting Company. While the other man I mentioned may manage Southside, this paper says that it is in fact Mr. Barringer who holds controlling interest in the company. His affiliation is of a silent nature, however. Kat picked up a new sheet and held it beside the charter. Now this, I have to assume Mr. Barringer has a very good friend working at the Hall of Records, because this is a bid that was on file, filled out by the manager of Southside and signed by Mr. Barringer to haul the town's trash. Interesting when you consider that the town hasn't even called for such bids, at least not yet. I can only guess that Southside had this lying in wait, just in case. I'd say they have a pretty good chance of getting the job too, since the form has been filled out in pencil. Kat lowered the sheets, but stopped and waved the business charter again. By the by, this paper also lists the accounting firm that handles the company's finances. Just tuck that nugget away for now. I promise I'll get back to it. Sam laughed to himself, clapping Kyle on the shoulder. Kat was back in form, a commanding figure whose words everyone hung on. Now for the capper. Kat held up a stack of paper. Here are the minutes from every town council meeting in the last year. Peppered throughout these documents, you will find evidence that Mr. Barringer has been pushing through rezoning proposals, systematically designating the land around my club for heavy commercial use. McLeod crossed the stage to Kat, putting on a pair of glasses as she did so. Kat stepped aside as the mayor inspected the documents that had been held up. Ms. Danson, exactly what allegations are you making? None, Your Honor. I'm simply bringing to light facts that I find odd. Kat studied the crowd. But I guess that if you wanted to look at it in those terms, you might say that Mr. Barringer's crusade to shut down my bar was self-serving, in that he would be able to clear the land if he drove me out. On another level, it was a good distraction for both the town and the council, making mundane business like rezoning and development even more mundane. She's playing it perfectly, Sam said in a low voice to Kyle. We've won. Not yet. Kat stood by as the mayor sorted through the pages. Oh, yes, she said. The accounting firm I mentioned before. You will see that it's the same accounting firm Mr. Barringer pushed the town council to hire to tally the election ballots. Is that so? McLeod held the papers in front of her and turned to Berenger, shooting him a questioning look over the top of her glasses. What do you have to say about all this, Mr. Berenger? Berenger stared for a moment, mouth working. Madam, I must protest, he managed. We have come here to discuss our respective visions for the future of this town. Instead, Miss Danson bogs the proceedings down with a stream of nonsense. If that's what you want, Kat said, I think I can detail the future as you would like it to be, Mr. Berenger. You said earlier that the town must extend a friendly hand to industrial interests in order to survive. How long were you going to wait and after the election to unveil your plans for the town's new landfill? Miss Danson, your allegations are unfounded. How long before you started raking in the profits from your carting firm? And preposterous. The audacity you have displayed simply by participating in this race has bordered on mockery from the start. Now you dare sully it further with this dogged pony show. You speak of audacity? Kat turned to the crowd. I ask you people, who has more audacity? Mr. Berenger has abused the power of his council seat to railroad his personal agenda into legislation. It was your tax dollars he would have stolen to develop the land. Your tax dollars that would have paid Southside carting. Your money in his pocket. That's his vision for the future of this town. Once again, we see the depths to which you will sink to make sure your snake pit remains open. Enough, both of you. McLeod silenced the pair. Miss Danson, the implications of what you claim to have found are serious. Can you substantiate the authenticity of these papers? She can't, but I can. Allison Wadawa?
Yep.
Yay. Appeared stage left, carrying the runner's microphone. Who are you? The mayor asked. Allison Wadawa. I'm in the advanced program at the high school, and I intern at the Hall of Records. I found those documents and gathered them from Miss Danson. She didn't make them up. This is ludicrous. Berenger gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping him off the floor. I will not stand here and have my credibility questioned by a child and a whore. The councilman wiped a sleeve across his forehead, handshaking. You have sunk to a new low, Danson, calling a child into service to perpetuate your wickedness. Berenger trailed off, breathing deeply. It's over, Berenger, Kat said calmly. You've used me as a red herring long enough. Instead of calling on the people of Wilson to further support your corruption, I suggest you call your lawyer. I suggest you do the same, Ms. Danson, McLeod said. I think questions are in order, and I'll need answers from both of you. She addressed the crowd. This debate is at an end, folks. The mayor's words acted like a pin on the silent bubble of tension that had formed under the canopy. People erupted from their seats in a frenzy of shouts, and the reporters shouted questions at those leaving the stage. Kyle laughed in triumph, jumping to his feet. Out of the mouth of babes, he exulted, fixing Sam with a cheery smile. Now it's over.
Wow, Suzanne. I want to commend you for reading the most boring chapter in my book. Holy crap. When I wrote that, I'm sure I was into it, but that went on too long, and who gives a crap? Oh,
It was a long chapter. I felt bad assigning that to Suzanne. Great job.
Oof, yeah.
Political intrigue, corruption. It has everything.
It's funny because, like, as I'm reading that, I'm like, I feel like I'm up there on stage.
Yeah. I don't know. When I was writing it, it made sense. Like it was the culmination of Sam's leap in many ways. And I remember I got that idea of like the bids and everything being in pencil because my father-in-law was in business in Nassau County here on Long Island for decades. And he said when you would go down to the Hall of Records where they kept the bids for the contractors who wanted to do stuff, everything was written in pencil because everyone was politically connected so that if someone got outbid, they would just erase their friend's bid and put like $1 less or something like that. So that was based on anecdotal experience from my father-in-law. And then, you know, the fact that I would think that somehow some stupid debate between two wannabe council members would be compelling to read as a Quantum Leap novels. I don't know. I don't know.
It's
Anyway.
sounded legit, though.
Yeah, it can't be too intense the whole time, or else you become numb to it. So this is good.
Yeah, and it also is like the culmination of like Kyle's interest in this and sort of him meeting Nancy in the beginning of the book, and you'll see that as the last chapters go on. So, but yeah, Suzanne, whew, better you than me is all I can say.
Travis says, "Good job." Roll for Taraco says, "Every time I re-listen to the QLP, I feel like Matt is still here.
I
He
feel like
is
Matt
still
is still
here.
here right now.
He's in our heart, and he's still alive, but in the past. That's the way I deal with that." Brian, Damon, welcome.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey guys,
Hello.
thanks
Hey.
for joining
How you
us, and thank you to everybody
Awesome.
who's watching us live, who's commenting. We hope.
How many
you're
more
enjoying
chapters
the
we
show.
have left? Because I want Brian to read them, Mike
let's
and
see.
Damon still.
We got
What do we
chapter
got?
20, 21, 22, and it looks like the epilogue. So
And the
3
epilogue.
chapters in the epilogue, and I'd like
That's
to read
perfect.
the epilogue if that's okay.
Of course. All right.
Yeah.
So nobody has a heart out. Everybody's good to hang.
I
Yeah.
gotta go.
All
You
right.
gotta go,
Thank
Suzanne?
you, Suzanne.
I
I'm sorry, you're gonna miss out.
appreciate it.
You read the you ate your vegetables. Now we get to have dessert. I'm sorry that you're not gonna be here.
Well, yeah. Got to get the kid to bed. So
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Say hi to Jonathan for us.
it's
I
great to
will.
see you, my friend.
I have to say when I missed a word or something, and you Chris stepped in. I was like, it reminded me when I read bedtime stories to my son, because he's sitting there reading along with me, and if I miss a word, he's like, no, or like that's not the right word. So,
He's a genius. He's a
Honestly,
genius.
for me, it was just like I felt guilty, and I didn't want you to have to suffer any more than you already were.
no, but things I started to laugh like the second time you did it, because I was like, it just made me think of like Jonathan's saying,
Good.
like,
All right. I hope it helped. I hope it helped.
Yeah, it actually did. It made like, I was like at the beginning, like I said, like I was trying to read it and I was trying to hold it far away, and the print is small, and I'm like, no, I need to take my glasses off.
Yeah, I know the print is small in this book. I have my glasses on for it, so
They're bigger on the tablet.
yeah.
There you go. You can just pinch and zoom.
Yeah.
All right, so who's
I need to head out.
Thank you, Suzanne. Remember
you,
to
Suzanne.
stick around after you hang up
Yep.
to fully upload. Appreciate it.
Hi, Suzanne.
Great job.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.
All right,
All
so
right, so-
we got chapter 20, 21, 22. So who wants to read chapter
I can do 20 since I can do it since these other two guys just showed up. We'll let them warm up
Yeah.
a bit first.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a good-
Mike.
good chapter,
Mike's
too.
been hanging out since 6 with us, I think, waiting for my internet to
Yeah, please.
Feels like it, yeah.
work.
In a good way.
So
All right, that
this
sounds great.
one's pretty dramatic, Mike. So take a breath.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Okay. All right, chapter 20. Al focused on the pool of light at the end of the hall. A crazed female laugh punctuated his slow approach, the sound chilling his marrow. But it offered hope at the same time. If Anne-Marie was distracted, he just might get his chance. He kept his back to the wall and shuffled along. He slid the mason jar from his armpit to his left hand and gripped the billy club harder in his right, lamenting his ridiculous arsenal. It was worse than having nothing. At least nothing wouldn't offer the illusion of hope. He would make it work some way. He had to. He reached the door frame and held his breath. A metallic click broke the silence, the unmistakable sound of a pistol being cocked. He forgot about strategy and swung into the doorway. Anne-Marie held a gun pressed against Sam's head. She shook all over. "Sam!" Al cursed himself, even as the word left his mouth. So much for surprise. Anne-Marie wheeled around, gun raised, but Al was already in motion. The mason jar flew awkwardly from his fingers in an overhand lob, and he dived for the cover of the desk. A shot exploded in the small space, and Al heard the jar shatter, smelled chemicals, and felt a white-hot sledgehammer crush his injured leg. The force of the bullet sent his airborne body into a half-turn before he crashed to the floor beside the desk. His knee thumped leadenly on the thin carpeting, and he cried out in pain. Silver flecks danced at the edges of his field of vision. But he dragged himself across the floor with both arms, retreating further beneath the mahogany barrier. He saw Sebastian Lonegro on the other side, struggling to sit up. Blood ran down the right side of the professor's face from a nasty gash on his temple. Al squirmed toward the man, gripping the lapels of Lonegro's tux to pull himself into a sitting position. The motion helped shake Lonegro out of his daze, and he tried to stand. Al held on. "Stay down!" "No. Up. Both of you." Anne-Marie loomed over them, staring down the barrel of the gun. She jerked it in an up and down motion. The men struggled to their feet. "Stand next to him," she said, backing toward the door. Al got an arm around Lonegro, and they stumbled toward Sam. Really Sam. Not just his physical aura surrounding someone else's body. Not just a hologram. His friend, living and breathing. For a moment, Al forgot about Anne-Marie, forgot about broken timelines, and reached for the man. For the first time in 5 years, hand met hand, and Al gripped tight. "You okay?" Sam asked, putting a supporting arm around Al's back. Al steadied himself. "Been better." He tested his knee, but the pain made him dizzy, and he quickly took the pressure off. As near as he could tell, the bullet had hit him in the thigh, but the entire leg was aflame, knee stiff beyond bending. Anne-Marie reached the door and slammed it shut, kicking it once for good measure. No more surprises. Her fevered gaze turned to Al. "I didn't think you had it in you, fat boy." She looked at the floor, eyes suddenly distant. "He does look like Tibor. I told you so." Her eyes snapped back to Al. "Kinda glad to see you, actually. It saves me a trip." Al hopped on his good leg, fighting the lightness in his head. What did she mean by that? "You won't get away with it." "And I guess you're here to see to that?" She bent and retrieved his nightstick. "You were going to save the day with this?" She laughed as she pulled the trigger. Slivers of wood flew from the corner of the desk. Al tossed around possibilities in his mind. How could he gain the upper hand? He kept his face calm as he nodded toward the shattered jar. "And that." Anne-Marie's eyes fell on the broken glass, and she yelled, throwing the club at the pile of shards. "Look what you did! Now what am I supposed to carry it in? Just for that, I'm going to kill you first." She raised the gun. Al reached through his terror somehow, and somehow managed to chuckle. "Why not? First a smuggler, now a murderer," he said softly. "What's next, Anne-Marie?" "What? How do you know?" "Know what? Your name? You're not as mysterious as you'd like to believe. I know all about you." Al struggled to keep his voice even, to keep his face stoic, as the barrel of the gun jumped from him to Sam to Sebastian and back. He fought to remember Sam's leap into Anne-Marie, what Verbena had told him about her. Anything that might knock the woman off balance. "Your name is Anne-Marie Rennery. You're from upstate New York, and your father was a doctor. You got your degree in art history." "Who are you?" Anne-Marie's voice wavered, as did her aim. Al hopped on his good leg, pretending to shift his balance as he pulled forward. The other men realized what he was doing and moved with him. They were a step closer. "You went to New York City in 1972 and got a job at an and got a job at an import-export company run by John Colton." He jumped again. Anne-Marie stared, mouth open. If he could get her listening long enough for all three of them to get close enough. "Only it wasn't really an import-export firm, was it?" Anne-Marie stood dumb. "Was it?" he roared. "No," Anne-Marie mumbled, eyes distant. "No. And within 4 years, you were practically running the operation. Smuggling, robbery, extortion." He hurled the words like shots of contempt. Each one drove the barrel of the gun a bit lower, made her mind retreat further until the weapon dangled at her side. He had obviously found the right buttons to push. If he could find a few more of them, he would gain total control. But it wasn't enough, was it? The fancy office, a hop closer, the power, none of it was big enough to hide behind. All it did was give the fear sharper edges. Al moved as quickly as he dared, his words designed to go for her throat. "All it did was land you in prison." Anne-Marie snapped her head up, eyes wide. I'm not going back there. I wasn't supposed to go there in the first place. Realization flooded her face, and she stared at Al as if seeing him for the first time. You're with him, she spat. That's the only way you can know all these things. You're mixed up in his experiment. The gun was up again, and all three men froze. Experiment? Al asked impatiently. Now that the power is gone, you have to hide behind conspiracies? Why are you so unwilling to own up? No, you're not going to trick me. I'm not the one who has to own up. He is. Her body quivered as her eyes darted from one face to the other. It's him that needs to take responsibility for what he's done to me. I mean owning up to who you are, Al yelled. How you handle what life gives you. You can't do the wrong things and pin it on someone else. Al could tell he'd found another tender spot. Anne-Marie kept the gun raised, but her mouth worked in a stream of mumbles. They weren't directed at him, apparently. But you said justice was at hand, Anne-Marie stammered. I can't be remembering wrong. He's standing right here. It's the one in the dreams. Him. The mirror. Her trembling thumb pulled back at the firing pin. Elegba showed me. Al stared at her finger and wondered if he had gone too far. She repeatedly rested the digit on the trigger, then lifted it off again, clearly in the midst of some internal struggle. The constant chatter accompanied her movements, and he heard the words mirror and blue room and a few more times. She clearly did remember the project, but couldn't figure out how to make it fit. And who was Evangeline? No matter. Well, the getting's good, he liked to say. With her in such a state of confusion, the getting didn't get any better than this. Al hopped again, but the movement drew Anne-Marie's attention. She stared at him, caught in a war between resolve and defeat. He stared back at her the way he stared at plebes in his academy days. Give it up. He was quiet, menacing, in control. He was also out of ideas. You know you can't do it. I will! Anne-Marie's voice was frantic. I am not a weakling. She was looking at Al, but she didn't seem to see him. Then why are you shaking like that? He demanded. You're terrified. No! She turned the gun on Sam. You don't scare me. You're at my mercy. I've devoted my life to reaching this point. Now you'll suffer like you made me suffer. But I don't even... Shut up, Sam, Al yelled. The physicist's voice was the last thing she needed to hear. The sound of it would drive her to pull the trigger, internal debate or no. But why such hesitancy on her part? Why such terror? She said she had devoted her life to finding him. Her hate was almost palpable. Yet the kill was a struggle. The pieces of the ugly puzzle came together in a flash. All Al needed to do was cast some light on the picture so she could see it. Well, here you are, he shot at Anne-Marie. So why don't you end it? Why don't you have the guts to pull the trigger? Al hobbled forward, not caring if she realized it. I'll tell you why. You've centered everything on finding him, on putting an end to him. But once you do that, what reason do you have for living? If you've based your entire existence on hating him, what will you do when that net is pulled out from under you? What will you do if you don't have him to blame it on? I'm not a victim. If you don't have a scapegoat for your hate, he had reached the halfway mark. I am not weak. If you have nothing left to hide behind, I am not a coward. When you have no one left to hate but yourself. Anne-Marie screamed, the piercing sound echoing through the confines of the office. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. She squeezed her hands to her ears, the pleading in her voice so tortured that Al felt sorrow for her. What was going on in there? Tortured or not, his chance had come. The gun was aimed at the ceiling, and her eyes were shut. He got almost within arm's reach of her before the cries died out and she snapped the gun back down. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter anymore, she said shakily, her voice small. It's the only way to make them stop. Her tear-filled eyes met Al's. You see that, don't you? I can't go on like this. I can't. Forgive me, Evangeline. She aimed the gun at Sam's head. "No!" Al yelled. But before he had a chance to react, the door opened, hitting Anne-Marie from behind. She pitched forward, and he wrapped her in his arms. A flurry of activity accompanied his tumble to the floor. He saw Sam's foot kick the gun out of Anne-Marie's hand, heard Lonegro yell, "Dana!" and heard Sammy Joe call his name over the familiar hoots of the hand link. "I don't mean to bother you and Sam, Sibby," a familiar voice said testily as Al got the cuffs from the back of his belt, "but the phone in the lobby of Stratton was broken, and Rex keeps beeping me. I just know it has something to do with that Mud Queen nonsense we saw on television. Can I use your phone?" Al locked the cuffs around Anne-Marie's wrists without much struggle. She wept quietly into the carpet, her fight gone. He didn't know if her compliance signaled acceptance of what he had said or sprang from an entirely different source, but broken sobs were all she had left to hurl, in a way that hurt Al more than a bullet had. He rolled off her back and sat up, turning his head toward the door. The woman in green from the banquet hall stared at him in shock, voicing it, the question ricocheting around his brain. "What the hell is going on?" He matched her dumbfounded stare until he felt a tugging at his arm. "Sam, you're alive!" His friend looked down at him, holding the gun and a large knife. For the first time, Al noticed Sam's shredded shirt, the spots of blood on the left side of his chest. He looked at the remains of the mason jar lying in a puddle of chemicals. The realization made him shiver. Sam pulled him up. "Thanks to you." Sam glanced at the name tag. "Mr. Morgan." "She dropped the knife when you called my name. I kicked it under the chair." He waved the weapons distastefully. "What should I do with these?" Al pulled the walkie-talkie from his belt and waved the antenna toward the desk. "Dispatch, this is Morgan. I need an ambulance and every available officer at Eastman Labs, second floor. I left the light on for them." He clicked the unit off and hoisted himself onto the desk as Sam laid the weapons down. "The timeline is restored, Admiral." The stability of Samantha's image had already told him this much. "Preparing for retrieval." "Wait, what's going on?" "My wife's impeccable sense of timing, I'm afraid," Lonegro said. He laughed, gave the woman a squeeze. "Dana has a knack for finding trouble. I tried to insist that she keep her maiden name when we got married, so as to not ruin the family reputation, but she would have none of it." The woman stood beside Al and fingered the gun Sam had dropped on the desk. As he stared at her, flashes of memory drove his jaw further toward his chest. Sam handed Dana the gun, showing her how to use it and warning her to keep it pointed at him. Al studied the hand link, relating what he saw crawling across the tiny screen. "She testifies on your behalf and keeps you from getting 15 to 20. Then she goes back to school, law school. Then in 76, she passes her bar and becomes senior partner in the firm of Elroy and Elroy. Then it becomes Elroy, and Lonegro." He stared at the hand link to make sure he was reading it right. "Sam, you're never going to believe this." Sebastian Lonegro walked through the front door at that moment, laden with groceries. "She marries—" "Professor Lonegro!" Sam exclaims. Al looked at him in askance. "How did you know?" "Dana Barringer?" She was older, streaks of gray peppering her blonde hair, wrinkles where there hadn't been any before, but she was the same person Sam had saved during a leap 2 years ago. "Not for a long time," Dana replied absently. She was back at her husband's side, studying his wound. "Sibby, are you okay? Who is this woman?" Lonegro shrugged, scratching his beard. "Ask Sam." "Well, I don't know either," Sam exclaimed, looking at Al. "Mr. Morgan?" Sam repeated himself twice before getting Al's attention. "Huh?" Al's mind was just absorbing the words Dana had spoken when she walked into the room. No, it couldn't be. "I don't believe this," he muttered, focusing on the woman. He was almost afraid to ask, Did you mention someone named Rex before? Something about the Mud Queens?" "Yes," the woman replied testily. "You've probably seen it on the TV. The evil Councilman Rex Barringer is my big brother. He wants me to go to court with him." Al glanced at Sammy Joe. What are the odds?" Her hand leg dangled at her side. 1,000,000 to 1, at least. I'd asked Ziggy to confirm it, but I'm afraid of locking her systems up again. The colored box squealed, and she raised it. Retrieval program loaded. Hold on, Admiral. Time to take a ride. Al's mind immediately sprang to a new problem. Wait! Give me just one more. Sorry, give me just a minute more. Sam stood next to him, and Al grabbed his arm. There's no time left, Samantha said with a hint of sorrow. The longer you stay, the less your chances of getting home successfully. I won't lose both of you. She punched at colored buttons and nodded. Affirmative, Gushy. Fire! Al felt a tingle and clutched Sam's arm harder, pulling him into an embrace. All he needed was a little time to think. Was there a way for him to somehow turn this into a total victory? To change history again and prevent Sam from ever getting lost in time? He knew the answer, of course. He hated it. But he checked his urge to warn Sam about rushing into the accelerator chamber in 7 years' time. It would do more damage than Anne-Marie had ever been capable of. He settled for the hug instead. Looks like the homecoming will have to wait until another time, buddy, he said, not caring that Sam didn't understand what he meant. But at the party I throw for you, the only thing you'll have to duck is confetti. It'll be a real kick in the butt. Al held the embrace until the blue-white flash rendered him senseless.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Very good.
So that was the end of the Anne-Marie Sam confrontation. I'll have you know, very interesting. This is where the book veered from my original vision the most. In my original draft, Anne-Marie kills Sam.
Oh.
And I had this whole vignette set up of different things that Sam had done that had suddenly been undone by her killing him in the past. And when Al leaps again, it's not because he's going home because they've retrieved him. It's because GTFW snatches him out of that moment and brings him to Al's place, brings him to the bar, and gives him a second chance. And that was like my real vision for the book. Sam was going to die, and Al had to fix it. And I wanted to incorporate everything I saw in Mirror Image. I wanted to incorporate it all. And Ginger just said, no, we can't do that. We can't have a Deus Ex Machina. I understand why you want to do it, but, and so she said, what you really should do is find some way to tie it into Sam's current leap or to something else that's going on in the book so that it all comes together in the end. So that's when Rex, whoever he was, became Rex Barringer in my draft. And I was able to work in the Dana stuff. And at that point, I don't think, unless you were just a hardcore fan that had the series on VHS or whatever that you recorded because it wasn't available yet, you wouldn't remember the name Barringer and connect it to her charm. So it was a calculated risk on my part, and it kind of wears thin after years and years of people seeing these episodes 1,000 times. I would say, inevitably, when someone who's a huge leaper reads Rex's names for the first time, they're going to think of Dana. But at the time, I think it was enough, plausible deniability, or at least collective unconsciousness or whatever. So I tried to wrap it up the way Ginger directed me to, but keep it good and keep it leapy and keep it, all the stuff that I wanted to have, like the Sam and Al reunion and all that stuff. So
Nice.
I recognize the name, but I just thought it was like a little Easter egg, for us, like a little fun thing. So it didn't spoil it for me.
So, and even if it does now, I mean, it's fun to see how it comes together, right?
Yep.
So that's the most inside baseball, and that's something that I wish that I'd been able to talk to Matt about, and to really to explore this, because he wanted to know so badly. He really wanted to talk to me about the book so that he could write about it for his book, for his Beyond the Mirror Image. And of course, we held off and we held off and we held off because we were going to do it for the show. But
save it for the show.
You don't know what the future's going to bring. So I'm glad that we're able to talk about it now, at least honoring his memory. So everybody, please donate to his family.
Donate.
Go to the GoFundMe site that they have set up and give what you can. Any amount is appreciated, and help his family again in this tough time. Again, today is Matt's birthday, and I think it's just fitting that we're doing this now. And I feel like he's with me, that I'm able to discuss this stuff, because this is everything that I always wanted to discuss with him. And I'm sorry if I'm, I don't want to bring it down. We still have some book to go, but
What better birthday gift for Matt's family than a new unwrapped digital currency donation?
yep.
Roll for Tarako says, is there a chapter where Kyle finds an interesting radio? Was that the
Nope.
original draft?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
I don't know. I need a leap that has something to do with the radio. I'm just saying.
Oh, well, I mean, we'll talk about that after.
All right. I'm enjoying this. I'm really liking it. That was suspenseful. I felt like I was really there.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. There is even more. I'm so excited. Let's see. How about Brian? Would you like to read chapter 21?
I sure will.
There's
All
some
right.
really broad gags in this one, Brian. So
Oh, good. Perfect person to read it then. And remember, please donate. Give anything you can. Look under the couch cushion, see if you got any Bitcoin in there, or however that works. What else? Sell a kidney. You don't need both. All right. Asterisk, not in Pueblo, Colorado. Chapter 21, read by the infamous Brian Green from Al's Place.
hold on to all the fans of St. Elsewhere out there. You're going to get a shout out. So
Feelings started to return, and for a moment Al wondered if the retrieval had been successful. He still had someone cradled in his arms, but he was surrounded by mellow blueness. A familiar white dais came into view. The waiting room. He was home. But where was the slow music coming from? He pulled back and found himself face to face with Sam. Sam, what the hell is going on here? His friend had his eyes shut tight. He removed a hand from the small of Al's back to rub them. What was that flash? He asked. When he opened his eyes again, he recoiled in shock. Who are you? He pushed Al away just as the former leaper regained full feeling. Al's knees screamed at the weight it supported, and he tumbled to the floor with a grunt. Blood spread over the thigh of his Fermi suit. Ziggy! Emergency medical team on the way, Admiral, the computer replied. A pity I had to stop the music. It sighed. The observation was becoming quite interesting. Where did you come from? Sam asked again, his voice high. What happened to Charlie? Charlie? The guy who was here a second ago. You were here first, then he was here, and now it's you again. Al had never seen Sam pout before. Charlie's gone. For good. He instinctively reached for his shirt pocket before realizing he didn't have one. Ziggy, tell that crew to bring me a cigar. This is one crazy dream, Sam said, and retreated to his bunk. His falsetto voice grew petulant. First an old guy, then a real man, now back to an old guy. What do you think that Freed guy would say? Freud, Al corrected. It's Freud. And I have no idea what he would say, but around these parts they called me Admiral Calavici, not old guy. He shook his head. I guess they call you Sarah. Candy, if you like, either or. Geez, it's a wonder Sam got through even one day of being you without anyone accusing him of being a person, a pod person. What? I don't get it. I wouldn't worry, Al said testily. I get the feeling that's something you're used to by now. The silver gray door slid up, and the medics burst in with a crash cart and a gurney, Verbena leading the pack. Al, is that really you? Depends on who you talk to. Can I get some help here? Ooh, Candy squealed, just like on St. Elsewhere. This dream is getting good again. Where's that hunky Dr. Axelrod? The entire medical team paused and turned toward the bunk. You mean the television show? Verbena asked. Wasn't that the heavyset guy with the curly hair and glasses? Yeah, Sarah lent Sam's eyes some of the dreaminess she put in his voice. Now he was a real man. The crew stood in silent wonder for a beat more before turning its attention back to Al. The medics hoisted him onto the gurney and wheeled him into the corridor. What the hell was that? Verbena was cutting the bloody area of the suit with bandage scissors. Oh, that's our current visitor, Sarah Bullock. You know that's not what I'm talking about, Al grouched. Ouch. Be careful with that thing. I mean, the mambo we were doing. Oh, that. Verbena kept her head lower, but Al could hear her laughter. Well, when you leaped out, we brought Charlie Morgan into the waiting room. He seemed calm enough, and we thought it would help convince both Sarah and Charlie that their leaps were nothing more than a dream. One would voice the idea, reinforcing the other's suspicions. Simple, see? Verbena. I'm getting to it. They introduced themselves, but something odd happened when they shook hands. We didn't see any difference in either of them, but apparently they were able to see each other. It was as if the auras of Dr. Beckett and yourself canceled each other out when they met. Beak shook her head. Odd, that. Agreed, Al assented. But not as odd as the waltz I leapt into. Out with it. Well, these suits don't hide very much. Verbena yanked on some of the stretchy fabric she had cut away. And I take it Sarah is a girl of rather generous proportions. And Morgan, is he a little stocky? Said tactfully and truthfully, Al replied, both times. Well, Morgan's spare tire showed Sarah that he had it where it counts, and so far she's concerned. So one thing led to another. Don't tell me, Al shot. They plunked a quarter into the old imaginary dream jukebox and started two-stepping their way into each other's hearts. Whose idea was this music? A staff member thought it would be interesting to conduct an experiment on the effects that can be archived when subjects with preconceived notions are introduced to a new small stimuli. Can the psychobaggle beaks? I never figured you to be such a dirty pool.
Can I just go? A staff member thought it would be interesting to conduct an experiment on the effects that can be achieved when subjects with preconceived notions are introduced to a new visual stimuli. Can the psychobabble beaks? I never figured you to shoot such dirty pool. Anyway.
Verbena looked up. Her face, the definition of innocence. Admiral, surely you're not suggesting it was my idea. She turned back to the injury on the leg and studied it with interest. Truth be told, I found the whole thing rather unsettling. I mean, it was funny at first, but the image of you and Sam getting... She shuddered. It was quite a spectacle. Or to put it in terms I think Sarah would appreciate, the whole thing just weirded me out.
So this is a nod to all the slash fiction fans out there.
As much as it did me, Al shook his head. Not by half, honey. Not by half. Come on, fess up. Who? I doubt you'd believe me if I told you. Al's tone was getting rough around the edges. Ensign, he snapped to one of the medical crew. Whose idea was it? I don't know, sir, the young woman replied. Al looked at the other medics, but all of them suddenly seemed very interested in the walls. If I have to start giving orders... Oh, knock it off, Verbena said, or I'll order you to be put on bed rest and a Jell-O diet. Just believe me when I tell you that you wouldn't believe me if I told you. What the hell did you just say? He was fed up. No more BS. Tell me. Gushy, Verbena said. It was Gushy's idea. Gushy? Al pondered the name for a while before the truth sank in. Gushy? He actually made a joke? He made a joke? Al laughed, all tension gone. He made a joke and a damn good one. Verbena laughed with him, and I don't think he finished. I heard him talking to Ziggy about using a photo of the whole thing to design some Christmas cards. Al laughed so hard he almost fell off the gurney. Tina was waiting for them at the entrance to the medical bay and brought her hands to her mouth with a squeal when they rolled into view. Al, honey, you're home. Oh my God, what happened to your leg? She ran to him and threw her arms around him. Al could barely breathe with the barrage of kisses she plastered on his face, interspersed with, poor dear, poor baby. Then she planted him one full on the lips. She held it for a long time. He didn't resist. It's fine, Al said when he was finally able to take a breath. I've taken much worse. Will you let them roll me in? Tina gave one last squeeze and backed out of the way, knocking a medic aside and taking a position at the head of the gurney. Make way, coming through. Medical emergency. Thank you, Tina, Big said. I think we have it under control now. Tina moved to an out-of-the-way corner but didn't leave. What kind of damage are we talking about, Verbena? Will I ever be able to slow dance again? Verbena studied the wound, mystified. This is the damnedest thing I've ever seen. You have all the trauma of a bullet wound, but there's no bullet. There's not even a powder burn. What happened? Well, I sprained it pretty good at first. Then Anne-Marie shot me. Tina gasped. Al held up an arm, signaling her to stay put. I figured I'd be lucky to get away with the permanent limp. There's no swelling indicative of a sprained knee, Verbena said. In fact, I didn't even think to check the joint until you mentioned it just now. What does that mean? I have no idea, Verbena shook her head. If we're right in assuming that it's the entire body that leaps, which I think Sarah and Charlie just confirmed for us, then the bullet wound is consistent with that. But since your knee is fine, I'd say it's a hard and fast rule.
It's not a hard and fast
rule. It would have to be one or the other, Al insisted, wouldn't it? That's a discussion best left for Samantha or Sam when you see him next, Verbena said, pushing the air bubbles out of a filled syringe. But I, personally, have seen evidence to support both. Remember Billie Jean Crockett, the pregnant girl we had here a while back? First, her baby leaped with her, then it was gone. That implies it had a womb to go back to. But what about Ronald Miller, that Marine captain Sam leaped into who lost his legs? Sam was still able to stand up regardless. Verbena shrugged. As I said, it's a conversation that's out of my depth. I just fix them if they need fixing. She held up the syringe. This is a local. It's going to sting a little. She shoved the needle into Al's thigh. Sting? He gasped. It felt like the pain was suddenly gone, but not just the bite of the needle, but the relentless throbbing and burning as well. That's the stuff, Al said. Now fix me up so I can get out of here. A thought struck him. Does that mean Morgan is leaping back to a sprained leg and no bullet? Verbena shrugged again. Got me. Obviously, you couldn't bring the bullet with you when you left, but it never entered his body. What will happen to it, I wonder? Maybe his leap-in will displace it from our continuum, Tina said. Maybe there's a whole nother dimension where it will float free for eternity. Her eyes lit with inspiration. It's probably the same place Dr. Beckett goes when there's lots of time between leaps. She smiled. Maybe Dr. Beckett will have a friend waiting for him every time he leaps now. A pet bullet? Al was incredulous. That's enough, you two, Verbena snapped. You're going to give me nightmares of what would happen if Sam leaped into someone with a pacemaker or a steel plate in their head. She ripped open a suture package. Let's just take it for granted that higher forces are watching this whole thing and exerting some control. I'd say we saw that theory in action just now. Al turned and saw Sammy Jo standing in the doorway. She was grinning from ear to ear, practically beaming. Glad to see you too, he said. It worked, Samantha cried. The damn program worked. She laughed in triumph. I'll get him home yet. What did you mean before when you said you saw the theory in action? Tina asked. Samantha shook her head. It was the strangest thing. In a way, Dr. Beckett solved the problem himself. Al took over when he saw the questioning looks on the surrounding faces. There's no time to explain it all right now, he said, but I think things are more connected than we think. Sam's current leap into Sarah Bullock set events in motion that helped us stop Anne-Marie. And even that wouldn't have been possible if not for one of his leaps from a few years back. He shook his head. When I think about what really saved us, what I did seems more like a moral support than anything else. That's not entirely true, Al, Samantha said. There's no telling how much time you bought. What would have happened had you not been there to distract Anne-Marie? And Professor LaNegro's wife would never have had cause to go to his office if you didn't break the phone. Samantha grew pensive. I think we're looking at this whole thing from the wrong perspective. How so? Al asked. Well, it's actually kind of funny if you think about it, but we were also concerned about the bit of foreknowledge Anne-Marie managed to get out of her leap experience that none of us even considered the possibility that there are higher forces that already know how events will play out. Samantha extended her arms in an all-encompassing arc. Higher forces that are controlling matters, working to make sure things happen the right way. There's even a scientific line of thought that postulates something along the same lines. It says a paradox can never occur, that time can't negate itself. Any attempt will become its own undoing. It doesn't sound like a matter of science to me, Samantha, Verbena said, taking the last stitch. It sounds like a matter of faith. My, but that's a colloquial sentiment, Dr. Beeks, Ziggy said with a hint of disdain. And as much as I hate to break up this homecoming celebration, I must inform you that Dr. Beckett requires a little more than faith to complete his mission. He is in need of assistance. Oh, geez, Sam. Al hopped off the table and his leg gave out. Pain wasn't the problem any longer. It was that he could feel absolutely nothing. Al, get back up here this instant, Verena barked, helping him up. No can do, Doc, he said, testing the joint. His knee looked to be bending fine. It was just a matter of getting used to walking with a sensory hole in one leg. Piece of cake. Fun's over. I got to get back to work. He stumbled to the door where Tina waited and with supporting arms. He nodded at Sammy Joe. You come too. The three were in the hall, Al setting as fast a pace as he could muster. What eventually happens to Anne Marie? She gets tried for attempted murder, but is found not guilty by reason of insanity, Samantha replied. But Ziggy says she does get locked up again for smuggling. She does the time in a mental facility. As a matter of fact, she got out last year. Al continued to walk in silence, his mood worsening with each step. By the time they reached his quarters, he was able to walk unassisted. He disappeared into the bedroom and quickly began dressing. The source of his ire was simple, and he voiced it through the half-open door. What did we do to that poor woman? Who? Sammy Joe called from the outer room. Anne Marie. Don't you have that backwards? I wish I did, Al sighed, buttoning up her maroon shirt with canary sleeves and collar. He felt crummy despite his bright colors. I wish I did. But what that woman did, she did as a direct result of the path she found herself on after Sam leaped out. We drove her to it. There's no getting around that. He grabbed a few cigars from the humidor on his desk and popped one in his mouth, depositing the rest into his shirt pocket. He removed the stogie from his lips and started to unwrap it, but stopped in mid-peel when he saw Sammy Joe's expression. He stood in the doorway, meeting her indignant stare with a serene one. You're going to deny it? You can't put it in such simple terms, and you know it, Samantha said. Verbena gave me the psychological profile too, remember? The woman was unstable from the start, with no respect for anyone or anything, and no apparent rationale for the decisions she made. The very fact that she was institutionalized suggests she had a chemical imbalance, at least. She may even have an organic brain disorder. I'd say her rationale was very apparent, Al replied testily. Your neural link was almost non-existent. If you were getting through any better, you'd already know that the psych profile doesn't wash our hands entirely clean, even if it is right. You didn't hear the anguish in her voice, the pleading. I chided her for not taking responsibility for what she's done in life. How am I any better if I don't do the same? But it's not the same, Samantha replied with impatience. You and Dr. Beckett were only doing what you could, what you knew to be right at the time. That's not good enough anymore? Suddenly you're responsible for any hiccup that might occur further down the line as a result? Al rubbed his forehead. Is it just me, or does this conversation sound really familiar? Just give me a pool of banana fudge chunk, Samantha's tone softened. Just because the shoe is on the other foot, it doesn't make the advice any less valid. In a way, you're even better off. I should remind you that if you didn't do what you did the first time around, Dr. Beckett would most likely be getting used to his new life as Anne Marie Rennery.
Ranieri. Nobody can read her last name.
Ranieri, gosh. You had no choice. There's nothing that can be gained by second guessing every move you make. If you do, you'll always be in your own way. You'll never move forward. You're right, Al nodded to an extent. But I don't have to like it, and I don't think I'll ever be able to justify the part that I played in the whole thing. Nobody is asking you to. Al lit the cigar and rubbed his hands together. He would let the questions wait until he had time to dwell on them properly. Let's see to Sam. The control room was awash in its usual cascading color patterns. Gushy, at his place behind the console, offered a hand link. Good to see you back so soon, Admiral. Good to be back. Al took the hand link, shook it once for good measure. It squealed suitably. And don't forget to send me a Christmas card this year. He started up the ramp to the imaging chamber, but stopped when he heard someone clearing her throat. No hello from me, huh? Al turned slowly. Donna stood behind him, hands on hips, foot tapping. Donna. He ran down the ramp and threw his arms around her. Boy, is it good to see you. All right already, Donna laughed. You know I'm not really mad. Al held on anyway, making sure she was real. Not only had he not missed her for the last week, he hadn't even known he was supposed to have missed her. How close they had come. I know it, he said. I'm just glad to see you. Forgive me if I'm being overly mushy. Maybe she can, but I don't know if I'll be able to. Tina struck the same pose Donna had been in a moment ago. Only Al could tell she wasn't fooling. All this for her. But all you give me is one lousy kiss? She turned around and stamped to the console, heels clicking like machine guns on the concrete floor. Tina, honey, Al pleaded, taking a step after her. I was wounded, laid up. She turned and he stretched his arms toward her. You understand, don't you? I understand perfectly, little Mr. Welcome Wagon. She rounded the console and saddled up to Gushy. Al saw only one of her hands resting on the blinking display. What was she doing with the other? Gushy's face suddenly went as red as his hair. And when you get back from playing with Sam, don't come looking for me. She stared longingly at Gushy. The head programmer swallowed and ran a finger under his collar. I have a feeling I'm going to be busy. You, understand, don't you? Perfectly, Al mumbled, shaking his head. Perfectly. He reached the top of the ramp and punched the security code into the control panel beside the door. The steel barrier slid up and he walked into the blue haze, aiming for the silver disc at the room's center. He waited for the door to come back down before he let out a long, low laugh. He understood how things were back to normal, or what passed for normal around Project Quantum Leap, all except... Ziggy? Yes, Admiral. How long do you think it will be before the committee brings me up on charges for going against its orders? Orders, Admiral? They told me not to leap. Expressly forbade it, to be more accurate, remember? Well, yes, of course I remember. What a silly question. The computer let a precise amount of silence pass to show it was insulted before it continued. You probably remember as well. They, however, never made those orders in this timeline. Huh? You averted the threat posed by Anne-Marie Ranieri, right?
Ranieri.
Ranieri. You averted
Drink.
the threat
Ranieri.
posed by Anne-Marie Ranieri, correct? Yeah, in doing so, you changed the original history. To those outside the project, and even to those in it who had no direct dealings with the situation, none of it ever happened. So you're telling me, why do humans always need a picture painted for them? Ziggy asked testily. It's at times like this that I miss Dr. Beckett the most. The computer gave the equivalent of a sigh and continued in lecturing tone that would insult most kindergartners. Think of time as a river. The entire week has just passed, as you remember it, in a branch... As you remember, it is a branch of that river that breaks off and dries up. The river itself, however, has made minute adjustments to its original course and roars on. It seems no different except to those who paddled into the dead end and had to find a way back. Al understood perfectly what she meant, of course, even without the river analogy. He just enjoyed baiting her. It was a good way to keep sane, a diversion that kept him from concentrating too hard on the circles within circles, the confusing ripples of time travel. He stepped onto the silver disc and made the hand link sing. Begin program, Gushy.
And that's Al back.
Ranieri.
Ranieri. So
Ranieri.
yeah, that is the
Ranieri.
chapter that dates the worst. At that point, I was a huge St. Elsewhere fan.
Ranieri.
So to me, Morgan looked like Stephen First, who was also, I think, Otter, right? No, Otter was
Babylon 5.
Yeah, Babylon 5. I think of Animal House. Was he Boone? I think he was Boone.
Oh, yeah.
Boone, Otter. He was Flounder. He was Flounder in Animal House. Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. So it was basically Sarah likes the chubbies, and they were dancing in the control room.
I need their number. Question: When you were originally going back to that mining town for Mirror Image, was she going to be a Ranieri in the coal mine at all?
And Albie wins Quantum Leap for the year.
All right. Chapter 22, Bente Dos, if you're following along at home, is soon going to be read by the lovely Damon. But of course, we got to remind you why we're here. Donate. It's that time of year. Turkeys, stuffings, Christmas trees. What else?
Cranberries,
Oh,
spotted
cranberries.
dick.
Yeah,
Spotted dick.
you got to love spotted dick.
Right.
So
that's
I'm
for
sure
all our
Matt
friends
Dale
in the
loves some
UK.
spotted dick.
Yes. We had many a laugh on the podcast talking about spotted dick.
Yeah. Do they make a low carb version of that? A keto version? I don't know. I'll have to look. Maybe make one myself.
There's a kink for everything, my friend. A kink for everything.
King for everything. Keto spotted dick. Low carb spotted dick.
So
All right. So follow the QR code. Follow the links in the chats, and just give what you can. $1, 100, million, whatever you got. Just donate. All right. We got mugs. We got
$1
cups,
million pounds.
We got shirts. Yep. Lasers on freaking heads.
Sharks. Right?
Sharks. Yep. Chapter 22, and then we have after that we have the epilogue.
Yes, I'd like to read the
All right.
epilogue, but
Yes, that
our
is
good
perfect.
friend Sugi
Sugi
is going to read chapter 22.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Chapter 22. The police station loomed ahead, the barrier set up in front of it seeming to bulge with the surge of the crowd. Sam, Kyle, and Tawny had decided to walk the 5 blocks from town square. There was no way to get a car through the mess. A second human barrier of broadcast reporters lined the rear edge of the milling mass, their microphones raised at regular intervals like readied rifles as they recorded their stand-ups and delivered live reports. His job was finished, so far as Sam could tell. Barringer was exposed, Kat was on her way to becoming mayor, and Kyle and Tawny had not snapped at each other once. In fact, they were getting along famously, recounting the events of the evening with laughter and a mutual sense of accomplishment. Sam joined in the conversation half-heartedly, worry gnawing at his elation. It was all over, even the shouting, and still there was no sign of the observer and no leap feeling. She should be around here somewhere, Kyle said as they passed behind the ranks of reporters. There she is. Oh, and look, the little Nimrod is there as well. Kyle rushed ahead. Sam looked at Tawny, eyebrow raised. Our mysterious source? Let's find out. Sam grabbed her arm. Hang on a minute. He quickly took his hand away and raised it in surrender. I guess I have a beating coming my way. Tawny's expression was questioning, but she put a hand to her mouth in surprise after a moment. Oh, that. I'm sorry I threatened you. I was just pissed off, and you caught me at the exact wrong time. It's okay. We've all been there. I just wanted to see if anything has changed between the two of you. I mean, it looks like you're getting along better. We are. Tawny smiled and rubbed Sam's forearm. Thanks for trying to help. We haven't gotten along this well since before Mom died. Hell, I don't remember ever getting along this well. Sometimes it takes a tragedy for us to realize how much we really mean to each other, Sam said, or to realize that family members are probably the most important people in our lives, even if they do have a tendency to get on our nerves. That's what keeps it interesting, I guess. Are you going to go see your dad? Kyle's told me how much he's changed, Tawny sighed. I don't think he'll ever be the same man I grew up with, but I have to try. Sam felt a twinge of worry. What if it's still not so easy? You won't leave again, will you? Tawny shook her head. It won't really matter, to tell the truth. I've decided that I'm not moving back home no matter what happens. It would be like taking a step backward for all of us. Who knows? If I'm constantly there, Dad may decide he no longer needs his newfound independence. That wouldn't be healthy. She paused. But I'll never turn my back on them again if that's what's bothering you. I am who I am. If they can't handle it, that's their problem. They'll always know where to reach me. Sam gave a tentative nod. I see your point. It wasn't all smiles and rainbows, he thought, but at least the lines of communication were open. There wasn't anything more he could do. I guess that's all any person can ask from another, family or not. Well, I hope that Kyle sees it that way too. He's a little stubborn, and I get the feeling he won't take it as calmly. Tawny rolled her eyes. When I get the nerve to tell him, that is. I don't think he'll give you much of a problem anymore, Sam said. He's seen that you can take care of yourself. He'll never be crazy about the mud rustling, make no mistake about that. But he knows that he doesn't have to worry about you. I think that's all he was looking for in the first place. Girls! Kyle waited a few feet ahead, pacing impatiently. Let's go! Sam and Tawny trotted forward, following Kyle's lead. He loped toward a man and woman who were arguing. Sam assumed they were reporters since the woman held a microphone. The man paced in front of a camera that had been set up on a tripod. You can't do this, Sam heard the man exclaim once they were in earshot. Look around you, Jerry, the woman yelled, waving her microphone at the crowd. The story's broken. You can't hide it any longer. Kyle halted a few feet away. Is there a problem here? Jerry turned on him. You! I should have known you'd be mixed up in this. Looks like you got me, Jerry boy. It's a wonder you're not working in a bigger market, what with that uncanny deductive reasoning you display. Where do you get off coming in here covering my beat? From what I understand, you've been busy covering other things, Kyle shot back. Or should I say covering them up, Brown? Nancy asked for my help because she knew that if you got wind of what she'd found, she'd be out of a job. What's going on? Tawny asked. Is this the source you kept mentioning? Let's make some introductions, shall we? Kyle extended a hand toward the woman. This is Nancy Totorovic. Is that right? Totorovic?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. This is Nancy Totorovic, and she is my source. Her sparring partner here is Jerry Brown. Kyle slapped his forehead. I'm sorry, Jerry, he said. How insensitive of me. Brown is just your on-air name, isn't it? Please permit me to take that back, ladies. This is Jerry Barringer. Jerry Barringer? Sam exclaimed. Is he? Old Rex is his second cousin. Kyle scratched his chin questioningly. Or is that first cousin once removed? I never was very good at family relationships. He winked at his sister. But whichever you call it, I'm right, aren't I, Jerry? You were pulling double duty as Cousin Rex's personal censor, making sure the story didn't leak. How dare you insult me like that? Brown sputtered. My reputation as a reporter in this town is spotless. Ask any, then why did Nancy feel she couldn't turn to her partner for help with the biggest story this town has seen in years? Why did she feel she couldn't even share it with anyone in the newsroom? And why are you and why are you still trying to stop her even now? Admit it, you're in his pocket. And if you knew about any of this earlier, you would have gone running. Where? Brown was indignant. Even if what you say is true, how could Councilman Barringer possibly have done anything to prevent the story from getting out? He doesn't own the television station. Kyle shrugged. He's a powerful man. Was a powerful man, anyway. I'm sure he would have been able to find a friend or two in the proper position to get Nancy a one-way ticket out. I don't know where you're getting all this from. Brown shook his head, a resigned grin on his face. And you obviously refuse to listen to the truth, but you're dead wrong. I guess we'll just wait and see, Kyle said. The truth will come out eventually. He stared hard at the man. We both know it, and even if Barringer doesn't finger you directly, I'd say your credibility is shot. Kyle's stare grew deadly. I'll see to it myself if necessary. That ought to wipe that stupid grin off your face. Brown did his best to match the stare, but soon lowered his gaze and stalked off. He turned once, mouth open, finger raised, but if he had anything left to say, he thought better of it. He disappeared into the crowd. Good riddance, Kyle mumbled. Teach you to mess with mia familia. Thanks, bud, Nancy said warmly, giving Kyle a punch in the shoulder. Now get your butt behind that camera so I can shoot this stand-up and get inside. Sam stood aside with Tawny, letting Nancy do her work. His mind chewed on the latest revelation. Of all the people who could have been Kyle's source, he never in a million years would have guessed that it was another reporter. That wasn't even something Ziggy would have suspected. But was what the parallel hypercomputer suspected or didn't suspect really all that important? He felt that he had done his job rather well, Ziggy's guidance notwithstanding. Hell, it was a leap that under normal circumstances he would have considered easy. All he really did over the course of the last week was make a few suggestions, lend some support where he thought it was needed. Things had rolled with their own momentum from there. The only thing that had been missing was the creature comforts. Another thing he realized was missing finally was the feeling of dread that had been looming in his subconscious. As glad as he was to be rid of it, however, he tried to recall the sensation, hoping that he would remember it in future leaps. Maybe it was really a gift bestowed upon him by whatever forces were directing his movements through time, a sort of mental barometer that he could count on if he ever found himself flying solo again. You guys ready? Kyle asked, shouldering the camera and tape case. Nancy says she wants to go inside. Yeah, Tawny said. Her and everybody else. How are we going to get through that? Sam's eyes followed her extended finger to the entryway. The sawhorse barricades were doing an excellent job of keeping the crowd back, townspeople and reporters alike. Apparently, no one was getting in. It's all been arranged, Nancy said as she looped up the microphone cord. We won't have any problems. Sam doubted it, but followed the others to the front of the mob. Nancy spoke briefly and quietly with one of the patrolling officers, and the man let them pass. What did I tell you? She said as they entered the lobby. Piece of cake. She had an equally short conversation with the desk officer before they were escorted to their final destination. Cat and Richard sat on chairs lined against the wall of the short corridor, Allison between them. There you are, Cat said as they approached. I was getting worried that you bailed out on me. Why? Sam asked. We're not taking the heat. We're giving it. Where's Barringer? Cat tilted her head toward the closed door on the other side of the corridor. In there with McLeod and the police chief, probably trying to save what's left of his skin. I was beginning to think I'd have to do the same without my co-conspirators. Kathy, Kyle stretched the name, holding his arms out. Have I let you down yet? Save it, Kat snapped good-naturedly. I wasn't talking to you. She approached Nancy. You, my dear, are brilliant, simply brilliant. Allison told me you were the one who orchestrated this whole thing. We were having a rather enlightening conversation. Don't let her fool you into giving me all the credit, Nancy replied with a shake of her head. This was Allison's baby from the start. I just used what she gave me. What are you two talking about? Sam asked. Let's just say that Barringer isn't the only one in this town with a well-placed cousin. Nancy approached the girl sitting next to Richard. Mine is just much smarter. My hat is off to you, kiddo, but please don't decide to go into journalism. I don't need the competition. Me either, Kyle said. Allison grinned sheepishly. You know it's not like that. Like what? Sam asked. What in the world is going on? Go ahead, Nancy said. Tell her. It's all pretty simple, really, Allison said to Sam. I was at my lousy job in the Hall of Records. Lois asked me to organize the files, and I found that bid, the trash bid, written in pencil. Sam nodded. I found it in the back of a drawer where it didn't belong, Allison continued. When I asked Lois what to do with it, she practically ripped it out of my hands, put it back where I found it, and told me to forget about it. Don't you just love it when you meet a real people person? Kyle asked. I guess she thought one command would suffice, since to her, young people are the champions of laziness and stupidity. Allison rolled her eyes. You don't have to tell me, but I remembered my civics teacher mentioning that those bids were supposed to be written in pen for them to be legal. I knew something had to be up, so I told Nancy about it. We did a little more digging, and you know the rest, Nancy said. Not quite. Sam raised an index finger. Why did I have to tell you Navenka sent me when I picked up the folder? Allison turned to Nancy, a knowing smile on her lips. 'Cause? Brown isn't the only one with an on-air name, Nancy said, smirking at her cousin. Nancy's just a nickname. My real name is Navenka. Navenka, Sam repeated. No one would think to use that. It has kind of a catchy sound, like the name of a talk show. Much better than Nancy, if you want my opinion. Nancy shook her head slowly, staring at Sam as if he had sprouted another ear. You're woefully ignorant of the broadcast biz, aren't you? Sam shrugged, somewhat taken aback. No one had ever accused him of being woefully ignorant about anything. I'm already making their hair stand up with a last name like Dotorovic. If I went by Navenka, any news director who saw my resume would begin to hemorrhage. Nancy shook her head. I appreciate the input, but I'd like to stay employed, thank you very much. Speaking of employment, Kat broke in, I have the feeling that as of tomorrow, I'll have a new job to worry about. The good part about that is that the club can stay open. Unfortunately, there will be no one to run it come January. She turned to Sam. Unless, of course, you'd consider taking the job. Don't do it, Sam, came a gravelly voice from behind. Sam felt a flood of relief and surprise. A flash of anger followed, and his instinct was to wheel around and face the source of the voice. It was all he could do to keep his feet planted. Really need to go to the bathroom, he finished. If you'll just excuse me for a second. He practically ran around the corner. Haven't we already talked about this problem of yours, honey? Kat called after him. Sam burst into the men's room. A glance in the mirror reminded him he was in the wrong place, and he bolted back into the corridor in search of the appropriate door. The observer stood calmly in the corner of the ladies' room, ash disappearing as he flicked it off the end of his cigar. Get to the urinal and discover that you didn't have the right parts? You didn't have to meet me here. We were fine with the others. The hell we were, Sam shot back. Where have you been? Is everything okay back at the project? It's fine, Al said, pacing toward his friend. Sam couldn't point to anything specific, but Al seemed more relieved than he himself was. I'm sorry it took us so long to get to you, but I was called away. Why are you limping? Was called away to another alimony hearing, Al continued. Only this time I won, and Sharon gave me a shot with her heel so the victory wouldn't be as sweet. Figures, Sam said. Is Gushy okay? Is the problem with Ziggy fixed? What was it? Oh, that? Yeah, it turned out to be nothing. Boy, you need to learn to relax a little more. Gushy just installed a circuit board backward or something. I would have been here a little sooner, but since we hadn't contacted you in so long, Her Majesty's proximity circuits were off. I wound up in the middle of the circus outside. Looks like you had a busy week. Al clenched the cigar in his teeth and retrieved data from the hand link. A very busy week. To say the least, Sam said, taking a deep breath. You don't know how good it is to see you again. I miss you too, especially when the lawyer asked for character witnesses. The observer shook the hand link. Sam enjoyed hearing the tinkle. Looks like you've pretty much wrapped things up. Yeah, that's what I figured. All I have to do is accept that job Cat is offering, and you're not going to take that job, Al cut him off. Ziggy's not giving it good odds. What do you mean? It's the perfect opportunity for Sarah. No, it's a good opportunity for you, not her. Sarah'd never be able to handle it. Why not? I had a chance to talk to her earlier. Al spun the glowing tip of the cigar around his ear and whistled like a cuckoo clock. That bad, huh? Let's just say that she's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, Al said. I think she became a mud wrestler so she wouldn't have to worry about the complexities of tying her shoes before going to work in the morning.
God, I am a dick. I am such a dick. Holy crap. Where did this hate come from? Anyway.
Al, Sam chided, couldn't you be a little more kind? That is kind, believe me. What's supposed to happen then? Sam's focus drifted again to Al's limping gait. A rather uncomfortable part of the evening sprang back to his mind. Does Ziggy say anything about Sarah and Kyle? What, you mean romantically? Al cocked a thumb over his shoulder and chuckled. Old Beanpole back there doesn't have a chance. What then? Al squinted at the minuscule screen. Meet me back with the others. He pressed some buttons and popped out of sight. When Sam re-entered the corridor, the observer was standing next to Tawny. She's the one that should take the job, Sam. Ziggy's giving it 95%. How about it? Kat gave him an expectant stare. Does my club have a new manager? It'll have a new manager, Sam said with a smile, but it's not going to be me, I'm afraid. Why not? Kat sounded stunned. With all you've done this past week, it's like you're a whole different person. After seeing you in action, I just know you'd be a natural. Maybe so, Sam replied, but I'm afraid that's not where my interests lie. I do, however, know someone who would do just as good a job, probably better, in fact. Who? Tawny asked. You, Sam said. Tawny's eyes grew wide. Me? Whatever gave you that idea? Just call it a hunch, Sam said, tapping his chest. It feels right to me. Considering how far I've gone on your hunches. Kat turned to Tawny. What do you say? Tawny's mouth hung open. She threw Kyle a questioning glance. Don't look at me, he said, hands raised in front of him. You're the one who keeps telling me to butt out. Tawny gave her brother a smile that Sam found reassuring, then turned back to Kat with a determined air. I'll take it. The handling squealed with renewed vigor. That did it, Sam, Al said. Tawny manages the club for a few years and then opens a place of her own in Manhattan. No mud wrestlers. He sighed. What a pity. But it'll do a booming business, become one of the hottest hangouts in New York City. Al paused. This is interesting. Kyle will be in New York, too, working in television news. It looks like this Mud Queen's story will do a lot for his career. And their father will get a nice little place of his own not far off in White Plains. The door to the police chief's office opened, and McLeod stuck her head out. Ms. Danson, we're ready for you. Barringer stalked out with a police escort. For once he remained silent, but the look of contempt he cast on the group said plenty. You too, Ms. Wadawa. Have your parents arrived yet? They're on their way, Allison said. I'll be acting on their behalf until they get here, Nancy said. I'm her cousin. Well, knock me over with a feather, Ms. Dotorovic, the mayor said with a smile. Who would have figured? I guess that means you'll have one heck of an exclusive interview. Let's get this finished. I have to get up early tomorrow so I can vote. The three women filed into the office, and the door clicked shut behind them. Anyone hungry? Kyle asked. I could go for a little something. Any takers? Count me in, Tawny said, sliding a hand into the crook of her brother's arm. Coming, Candy? Kyle looked at Sam expectantly. Too much so. The leaper quickly shook his head. No, you go on ahead. I'm pooped. All I want to do is hit the hay. You're a loss, Kyle shrugged. Mr. Danson? I appreciate the offer, but I'll just wait here until Kat comes out. Catch up with you guys later, then, Tawny said. I better take the time now to thank you for your undercover work, Kyle said. I'm afraid of the penalty if I forget. I don't relish the prospect of another shot to the head. You don't have anything to fear, Sam replied, narrowing his eyes at Kyle. Yet. And you're welcome. Kyle looked slightly shaken as his sister pulled him down the corridor. Sam stared after him, tapping the skin under his eye. Kyle instinctively reached for the same spot on his own face before turning the corner. Good work, buddy, Al said. He was barking up the wrong tree anyway, unless he suddenly develops a penchant for Twinkies. Sam raised an eyebrow at his friend, but a soft voice behind him stopped him from pursuing the question. Sarah? Yes? Sam turned and saw Richard there, hand extended. He shook it ladylike. I owe you some thanks as well, the older man said, for a whole new future of interesting possibilities. I'll have to bone up on my skills as town's first man. Shouldn't be too much of a problem, Sam said. I think you'll have to start another family photo album, though. I get the feeling Kat's picture is going to show up even more now than it used to. Oh, Kat will love that, Richard said mischievously. Now go. Get rested while you can. In a few days, you'll have a job to go back to. Good night, Sam said, retreating around the corner. What happens to them, Al? Kat wins tomorrow's election by a landslide, the observer replied. She goes on to serve another term before she and Dickie retire permanently. They stay right here in Wilson. As for that other reporter, she gets her own talk show based out of Chicago. Don't tell me, Sam said. It's called Navenka. Bingo, said Al. How did you know? Another hunch. Her cousin Allison becomes an author. He punched the hand link, eyebrows raised in surprise. In fact, her first book came out last year. 1998, I mean. And you'll never believe this. It's a sci-fi time travel story. A very perceptive young lady, Sam said. I could tell that the first time I spoke to her. What about the man whose empire she toppled? Well, Barringer does some time for fraud, but when he gets out, it's politics as usual. He successfully runs for a Republican Senate seat in 1994.
Oppressions.
Ah, the great game, Sam sighed as he walked out into the cool night. You just can't help but love it. The crowd had thinned out considerably. The only people still hanging around were reporters, probably waiting for a chance to pounce on Kat when she exited. So that should do it. Do I have to ask the question? I know. Why haven't you leaped yet? Al puttered with the hand link some more. Here it is. It seems the Kat makes one final big move as manager of the club. Call it a grand exit. When she and Richard go there tomorrow, they'll find a representative from a production company waiting for them. Yeah, so? The guy's going to offer them some cash to film a special that will air on cable stations nationally. It's one of those pay-per-view things. Al batted at some glowing buttons. The Mud Queen's Mud Wrestling Extravaganza, they'll call it. What does that have to do with my leap? Ziggy says that a rep from a modeling agency will be watching. Oh no, Sam said. The detail he had been so worried he was missing suddenly snuck up from behind and bit him on the tush. No. Yes, the observer shot back, grinning around a cigar. Don't say it, Al. Don't say it. Is your bikini clean? Sam ducked through the ropes, grimacing as mud slithered up between his toes. Through the smoke and flashing neon, he saw his opponent entering the far corner, wearing a very determined look on her face and not much else. No matter, Sam decided. For once, he was going to use every advantage open to him, his superior strength, his martial arts skills, whatever else he could think of. He was going to trounce her. Al had only said Sarah needed to be seen on camera. He didn't say for how long. If Sam got his way, it would be the shortest match of the night. Oh, cut the sourpuss, Al said. He floated 3 inches above the middle of the ring, looking longingly at the other girl. What I wouldn't give to be in your shoes right now. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Sam waved him over, clutching a rope with the other hand so he wouldn't slip. Al floated leisurely to his friend, blowing kisses at Sam's opponent. Tell me again why I'm doing this? Why? Al moaned. Why the hell would any sane man need a reason? Don't worry, Mr. Morals. It's for the greater good. Ziggy says it will propel Sarah into a successful modeling career. She'll never have to worry about winding up on the streets again. Is that enough to appease the Boy Scout in you? Al stole another glance over his shoulder. Personally, I don't see why you would need a convincer. The bell dinged, and Richard went into his announcer's spiel. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice boomed over the music. We have now entering the ring. This is it, right? Sam asked, adjusting the strap of his bikini. No more surprises. I don't have to go on to be ultimate mud queen or anything. Unfortunately, no. One slip trip will do you. But why can't Sarah do this herself? Sam asked, exasperated. I mean, she'd probably be a lot better at it. What can I do that she can't? You mean besides count to 20 without taking off your shoes? Al's face sobered at Sam's warning look. Ziggy says that in the original history, she slipped when she left the ring and broke her nose. As a result, the modeling offers never came her way. Just put one foot successfully in front of the other and you can wave goodbye. Sam nodded, rolling his eyes skyward. I expect some payback for this one, you hear me? The next leap better be into a resort in Tahiti where all I have to do is prevent someone from getting too much sunburn. Don't worry, buddy, Al said seriously. They're watching. They care. The bell dinged 3 times, preventing Sam from responding. He ran into the ring as best he could with a slippery footing and met his oncoming opponent before she reached the halfway point. He slid in low and swept her legs out from under her. Before she could even gasp, he had her shoulders pinned. She grabbed his head defiantly, driving his face deep into the ooze. He couldn't breathe, but he didn't care. He just had to hold on for the count of 3. The pressure on the back of his head finally ceased, and he lifted his face, breathing deeply and swiping mud out of his nostrils. He then helped his opponent to her feet and hopped out of the ring. We have a winner, Richard announced. Miss Candy Apple. He held the microphone out for Sam to give a victory speech. Sam gave him a smile, then walked through the bar in silence, ignoring the hoots and whistles. He paused briefly and smiled into the camera before he retreated to the safety of the hallway. That did it, Sam. Al was suddenly beside him. It was enough to get her seen by the right people, schnoz intact. Well, thank God for small fave. Kat burst through the door Sam had just closed behind him. She ran down the hall, passing right through Al and bumping Sam hard enough to make him stumble. A glob of mud ran down his forehead, stinging his eyes. He reached blindly for a wall and began feeling his way to the dressing room. Before he got there, he heard Kat open the side door and gasp. I thought that was your car I saw pull in, she said hurriedly. Boy, did you pick the wrong night to visit, Governor. There are cameras all over the place. Al let out a surprised gasp of his own before the corridor was filled with gales of his throaty laughter. Sam was still wiping mud out of his eyes when he leaped.
Wow.
So, who was governor of Arkansas
Yay.
back then?
Uh,
That made the book.
somebody I met, maybe? Did I meet this person, I think?
I don't know. Did you?
Yeah, actually.
That was my
cool.
cheeky Bill Clinton joke, as somebody called it online.
Yeah, didn't I ever tell you I held hands with him once?
I met him a couple of times when he was doing rallies
Yeah.
in the city before he was, before he even declared his candidacy. I think it was still like primary time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
Laura
met him
was
as
in
an ex-president.
school, so yeah, I met him
Very
as a form before he was a president.
Quite tall, quite handsome, quite alluring.
I can't, man. I do Sarah wrong in this. I'm like, I'm embarrassed by the way Al talks about her, by the way Al treats her. Just the things he says are so terrible.
Are you going to do an updated version?
It's a moot point now. But
Well, this text will be studied for centuries, I believe.
yes, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Millennia. Before we do the epilogue, just reminding everybody why we're here. Happy birthday, Matt.
Happy
Donate.
birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday.
Issue.
Mhm.
Send him some digits.
Everybody, go to the QR code above my
QR
head. I
code.
believe.
GoFundMe. Matt Dale.
GoFundMe.
Links in the
and-
chat. Links underneath if this is later.
And anyone who's watching, anyone who donates, you're in line for a free gift, and you're also we have other things, right, Albie? For
Yeah, giveaways, free
substantial
gifts,
donations,
mugs, T-shirts. One lucky person liking, sharing, donating, all those things will count to be in the running, and to commenting is the personally autographed, inscribed book of Foreknowledge we've been reading all this time. The great book, the good book by Christopher DeFilippis.
We have just a
Yay!
little
Everybody
bit
has
to
their good
go.
book.
Yep.
Look what you've done, Chris. You've started a cult. Look at us all. Look at the
Cult of-
screen.
The cult of Anne Marie Ranieri.
Yes.
So there we
Whoa.
go.
Renary.
Ranieri.
So just a little word about this epilogue.
Okay.
I'd finished the book for almost a week, and it still just didn't feel finished to me. And I realized that there was just something missing. I know that we gave some lip service to it in the previous chapter when Al left back, and some of the discussion that he had with Sammy Joe regarding, their role in all of this. And I realized that we just needed to put a bow on some of that stuff. So that's where this came from. And I think I actually submitted it after I submitted the book. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm conflating how I felt with the actual, because I was too straight edge and too freaking nervous to not turn in my book on time and then ask, well, let me add something. Are you kidding?
Mhm.
So I probably had it done beforehand, but it felt like it was a little bit in coming. And then when I finally finished this, it made me feel better. So, epilogue. Al walked slowly down the hall, wondering how to proceed. He had taken this trip once, sort of, and this time felt just as dangerous as the last. It was even worse in a way. If there was anything he hated in all the world, it was state-run institutions. He wrinkled his nose. In that line, he's actually thinking of Trudy, of course. He wrinkled his nose at the oppressive smell of the place and fought back memories he had never been able to fully face. He found his destination and held his breath, knocking softly on the half-open door. Anne-Marie? The woman sat in a chair. Staring out a window at the grounds beyond. It's going to choke me up. I'm sorry. Give me a moment to compose myself. Staring out a window at the grounds beyond. It was her second trip back to the hospital since she had been officially released 8 months ago. Ziggy had not been able to locate any addresses for her in the times between hospital stays. Al didn't need the computer to tell him what it meant. Cast out, with no structure, no guidance, Anne-Marie lived on the street until her illness overcame her and forced her to come back again. He walked slowly into the room, noting the few hand-drawn pictures that hung on the walls. All were of the same smiling black woman. Al called to Anne-Marie softly, once again. The woman drew her focus away from the outside and slowly turned her head toward him. She was older than Al remembered, and she looked so tired. He knew it had nothing to do with lack of sleep. Al sat slowly on the bed, not knowing how to begin. He waved the forms awkwardly. These are sponsorship papers. They mean that I'm the one who's responsible for taking care of you from now on. Can't believe this. Anyway, they mean that I'm the one who's responsible for taking care of you from now on. You won't have to live on the streets anymore, and you'll always have money for your medication. It means you can start. I can't finish. I can't believe this. Holy shit. All right. You won't have to live on the streets anymore, and you'll always have money for your medication. It means you can start to put your life back together. Anne-Marie furrowed her brows slowly, looking at him quizzically through her drug-induced haze. Who are you? She asked softly. I'm a friend, Al replied, taking her hand. Someone you can trust. I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for writing that.
Anyway,
Oh.
that was the bow I think it needed. It was Al owning up to his responsibility in the part that they played, even though it was inadvertent, and giving Anne-Marie at least some kind of dignity at the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, I apologize for breaking up there. It's been about 20 years plus since I read that. And, you know, it also gives you an insight into a lot of times how I felt when I was writing the book. A lot of times I got so involved with the characters that I was just crying as I was typing, especially when Evangeline dies. And then with this, I was a little bit more circumspect about it. But now I'm glad it hit me the way it did. I hope that people reading it, I hope it hit them the way, because I knew what was coming. And I just felt like we needed something to put a bow on it. And the fact that it affected me so profoundly, maybe it's just hubris. I don't know. Maybe it's just me liking the sound of my own voice. But at the same time, I'm glad I was able to put it in, and I'm glad that I thought to do it, because I did want to end on Sam Sleep Out and the weird joke and the Bill Clinton stuff, but it really just needed, you know, we started with Anne-Marie. We needed to end with Anne-Marie.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
So anyway, that's Foreknowledge, everybody.
Yay!
I'll read it again without crying for the audiobook.
That's one of the reasons why it's the good book, and I carry it everywhere with me.
Oh my goodness. And I guess it's fitting. I mean, the last time I cried on mic was when Matt died. So we're here honoring Matt's memory, and I couldn't get through the announcement that he had passed away without breaking up. And It's kind of been an emotional ride this month, just thinking about him more than I usually do. And, I miss him. I love him. I hope that what we're doing here has some benefit for those who miss him the most and who feel his loss the keenest. The fact that I feel this way, I can't imagine what Sharon and Zach are feeling, even after all, a year. Especially, it's coming up on the anniversary, and today is his birthday. They must be in some place right now, and I just hope that what we're doing here will help commemorate Matt's memory and give them a little something extra to support them in their tough times. But I'm getting maudlin. Thank you for everybody who's been watching. Thank you, Albie, for arranging this. Thank you for you guys, all my friends, all the fan community that's come in and helped read the book. And thank you, Brian, for reading the most boring chapter. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Suzanne. Suzanne read the most boring chapter. Brian read the second most boring chapter of the entire book. So
that was great. That was much better out loud than reading it in my head, I think. And it was great. It was a good fellowship, us all getting together and doing this and remembering Matt. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. Donate what you can.
Yeah, please.
And November's a long month, the month of Matt, and of course it's the year of Matt too. Sure, let's do that. Keep it coming. Anytime you get a little bit extra. The human fund doesn't need it, but I think it'll help out Matt's family.
Yeah. So in that vein, I have a little bit of, I guess it's an announcement. I don't know. I've just had fun reading this story, and I tried to sell a second book to the Quantum Leap novel series, but by the time I had gotten around to making the pitch, Ginger had told me it's a crapshoot. I don't know. No matter what you submit, I don't know if I'm going to buy it anyway. But the last 3 slots that we've contracted for have been filled, and we don't know if there are going to be another 3, because that's how they used to do it in batches of 3. They would renew the agreement with Universal NBC every 3 books. And sure enough, I had my pitch ready and everything, and she contacted me and she said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to go with Carol Mirror's Edge. It's going to be the last one." And I said, "Okay, but I always had an idea in my mind for a different story. And of course it had to do with old time radio and Sam leaping. And I've had the leap in my head literally for decades, but I never wrote it down. And then before Matt passed, he was working on another revised version of Beyond the Mirror Image. And he wanted to do something to commemorate, I think it was the 30th anniversary or the 35th, whatever milestone anniversary we're coming up for the show. And he said, would you write a story for it? And I said, I have just a story in mind. And I finally wrote that leap in, or basically the prologue of that novel that I've had in my head for so long, but I never had really any reason to go back to it to write it, because nobody's buying Quantum Leap books. And it's just, unless I want to dabble in fan fiction, which I don't, there just seemed to be no reason. But Matt gave me a reason to finally put something down on paper. And I'm just happy that I finished what I wanted to, and that he got a chance to read it before he passed. It was the first in what was going to be a much longer story, the first bit. I don't know that I'll ever finish that story now, but just writing that initial prologue gives me such joy that I was able to share it with Matt. The other thing that he always did me such a great honor, I wrote another short story that was set after Mirror Image. It's a story called Somewhere Between Limbo and Lightning. I think it's still on your site, Brian.
It is. Yeah.
It is. And Matt told me that of all of Quantum Leap ephemera that he's read over the years, he thought that was one of the best stories that he's ever read. And I don't know if he was just saying it because we were friends or he was being nice to me, but he did include it in a special edition of BTMI that he put out for contributors and for special friends. And I know we're not supposed to talk about it because he doesn't want his supporters to feel slighted, but we showed it once on the podcast, and Matt's gone. So if you're going to be mad at him, be mad at him. But he sent this special 4th edition out to all of us, and he included my story, the Limbo, Somewhere Between Limbo and Lightning story in this. because it fit in with just stuff that he found that he didn't know how to put into the other 3 volumes. It just didn't seem to fit anywhere. So he made at his own expense, and just because that's the kind of guy he was, he made this volume 4 Project Archives as a special thank you to the people who helped him, who were instrumental in helping him with BTMI in a more personal way than just contributing, I guess, onto the what was it? Was it a GoFundMe? I guess it was a GoFundMe, right? Or
Indiegogo or something like that.
Yeah,
Or
Indiegogo, that was it. Yeah, but he included it in that, and that's when he told me that it's one of his favorite stories, and because of that, I think about him. I feel even closer. I look at that book, and I realize that I had touched him some way personally after we had known each other, not just some abstract guy who wrote a book or a story that he liked, but he was able to tell me how much he liked it, and that spurred me. That's when he asked me, let's do something for the anniversary. Just write something for me, anything. And I said, okay, I will. And his only stipulation was he didn't want to have something to do with the reboot or the continuation. He wanted a Sam and Al story. So I said, this is perfect. And I even thought of a way that I could put maybe some of the continuation series to pepper in with the legacy stuff that was going to be there. But I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but this is a very, very long way of me saying that I've enjoyed doing this so much that I'd like to maybe reconvene one more time. We don't have to be together, but I'd like to do a live reading of that piece of the story that I wrote for Matt at some point before the month of Matt is over. So I'll be, we can.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. I read it. I love it.
And it's nowhere near as long as this. I mean, it's not going to be like a 3-hour extravaganza, but
no. Yeah, I think, did you send it to me, Matt, and Allison at the same time, I think? And
yeah, that was it. Because I finished it, and I was so happy that I finished it. And it came out exactly as I always pictured it in my head, and then some. There was other stuff peppered in, and there was stuff that I wouldn't have ever written way back when I had it originally conceived, because I hadn't done the show with Matt and Allison. I hadn't done my radio settings yet. I hadn't done anything that made it uniquely a byproduct of the relationship that I built with all of you over all these years in the fandom. And I feel like the story is richer for that, because I have a much deeper contextualization of how I want to approach this stuff based on being part of the community, which I really never was when I wrote this book. To me, that was just some abstract thing over there. And I hope people like it, but I wasn't really introduced to fandom until East Leap. And then Brian invited me to the Leap Back. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh my God, like this is fandom. Wow. I never knew really. It just was something that was separate. So anyway, I know I'm rambling, and I'm feeling a little bit emotional. So again, thank you everybody for indulging me with this stuff. And thank you for struggling through as I struggled through the last 2 pages of this book.
Made it even better. It's real emotion, and I would love to read that leap in that you wrote sometime next week somehow.
We'll figure it out.
But yeah, I'm going to warn you though, once you get that out there, people are going to want more. It's that good.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I do have the next 2 or 3 sections of it mapped out in my head. So
all right,
we can figure it out if there's a demand and if I have the time.
Okay. Well, you won't have the time for a while, but I demand it.
Okay. And also, I got to be honest with you. It was the first time I sat down to write something literally in like over a decade. And it just, again, it came almost as effortlessly as Foreknowledge did.
It was going to be a audiobook, right? With I think Sam and Deborah were going to.
Yeah, they wanted. Yeah, he had even. Thank you for reminding me of that. He had even. I don't know if he secured Deborah's agreements, but he did ask Deborah, and she said she would go to Ziggy. Yeah, so I had to, at some point, Ziggy was going to be a factor in the story, not in the part that you're going to read, but so it really was thinking about, legacy stuff. And I had a whole thing. But anyway,
cool. We'll definitely do that. So look out for more on the quantumleappodcast.com, on our Facebook group, on our YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. So when we do that thing, you'll see it. And again, please donate. If you enjoyed any of this, I think we did 12 hours of reading Foreknowledge about. If you enjoyed any of it, throw something in the tip jar for Matt's family there.
Please do. And just, thank you for everybody who's stuck with us and who has donated already. It means a great deal to us. Just even if you haven't donated, just the thumbs up and the liking and being here to honor Matt's memory.
And share it.
Yeah, share it, please.
Let people know it's time. Month of Matt.
Thank you for not suggesting we read the whole book in one night.
Yes. After that 14-hour live stream you and I did, Stacy, and we had some other guests that took naps. I guess they had to work in the morning or something. But yeah, after that, next time. No. Stacy, tell people where they can find you. Thank you so much for helping us out with production and the chat tonight.
Absolutely. You can find me on Corman Productions Deep Dive TV podcast. You can find us just under the YouTube channel Corman Productions, where we talk about Quantum Leap as well as a bunch of other shows and lots of great stuff.
Awesome. Mike and Damon, who's going to do it this week? Tell us where we can find you and what's upcoming.
I could start. I could just, we're at Fandom. The YouTube channel is Fandom Entanglement, and we actually I just released it earlier today, the final season finale for the first season of Sliders. So we're going to take a little break. And then we'll be back, I think, around January, and guests are welcome.
Awesome.
If they want to join us, I'm sure that you guys are, I think, going to be doing one for us. So
something like that.
Yeah.
Coming soon.
And you want to say the rest, Mike? We're like with the Facebook group and stuff. And
we have a Facebook group. Links to Facebook and YouTube are on our website at fandomentanglement.com. That's the easiest place to find everywhere to get in touch with us and catch up on our latest podcasts.
Thank you so much. Brian Green, a man that needs no introduction, but let people know what you're doing, where people can find your stuff.
Always on quantumleap-alsplace.com. We're always putting new things on there. Anything we can find, anything that's donated. For the fans, it's always free. Never a charge. And I actually looked this morning for the first time in a while at the counter on the website, and we're 13,000 away from 1 million.
Wow.
So that'll be coming up next year, I'm sure. So
Very cool.
Thank you for that, and happy birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday, Matt.
Thank you for everything you did for me.
It's cool that we had a birthday party for Matt.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Chris, what are you and I doing?
We're just another couple of schmucks talking about Star Trek on the internet. You can find us blathering on and on and on about TNG and currently Lower Decks on our website. It's Trexploration. That's the name of our show. Trexploration.com will bring you to our website, or you can find us right here on the YouTubes. It's youtube.com/@Trexploration. And you can see Albie and me doing other live things. We do 1 to 2 shows a week. We alternate between Next Gen and Lower Decks, which is currently airing. We just did When the Bell Breaks. Apparently, we did it to an audience of no one because there was just a black hole where YouTube should have been. But trust me, it's a good show.
Yeah. Luckily, I was able to upload it real quick from the recordings right after. So still working that out. I'm glad it worked tonight.
And as of now, we still have to do our Lower Deck show. We're up to we're almost we're over halfway through the last season of Lower Decks here.
Of Gods and Angles episode.
Of Gods and Angles.
Season 5, episode 6, I think.
Yep. Season 5, episode 6. So that's going to date this really hard, but at least we'll have a snapshot in time of exactly where we were when this was done. Yeah. So
I just want to say thank you to everyone who was involved in reading Foreknowledge with us. Everybody that joined in when they could, and everybody that rearranged your schedules for me. Thank you so much to everybody. My apologies for my technical issues tonight, but thank you for hanging in there. And Christopher, I'd like to thank you for writing an amazing book. I mean, it really is really good. And it to me, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 5. Okay. So
9
that's
out of
pretty
5.
good.
Well, thank you.
9 out of 5. And it feels like Quantum Leap. It really does.
9 out of 5 muddy bikini tops.
Dude, right? I enjoyed that. I'm so glad that came back at the end of the book, the mud wrestling.
It had
All right.
to. Again,
Thank
we
you,
had to bring
Chris.
it full circle. Fiction has its demands after all. So.
All right. Go fund me. Go fund me. Go fund me.
Yeah, and
Christmas
if
is
anybody
coming.
has any kinds of Q&As about the book, if after you've read it, if you have any specific questions, I'll talk about this book until I'm blue in the face. I'm very proud of it. And even some of the cringe stuff that we read through that I don't know if it dates very well or if I don't know if it's as gripping as it felt like when I was writing it, I'm still very proud of it. And I,
Yeah.
again, thank you guys for helping me bring it to life and to remember it after all these years.
Yeah, it was a great time. So I think we're going to wrap it up. It's almost 11 midnight. And thank you, everybody. Just do what you can. Share this, donate, and keep Matt's memory alive. Always remember him. And happy birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Love you. I miss you.
Mhm.
For the Quantum Leap podcast, I'm Albie.
I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
I'm Damon.
I'm Brian.
I'm Stacy.
And we'll see you next time. Happy birthday, Matt.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right. I think